African Americans built this nation. We built this nation. You know, you're just starting to get real credit for that. Okay, I don't know if you know that. You're just starting to get, you built the nation. But you were such a massive part of it. Bigger than you were given credit for. Does that make sense?
All right. I'll get right into it. Okay. I just find it interesting that a lot of people call Donald Trump a racist, right? And they are supposed to be pan-Africanists or black. And they can't admit the obvious, that Foundation Black Americans are responsible for the foundation of this country. They can't admit that. They're supposed to be pro-black, down for the cause, or just black, right? Part of the diaspora, whatever y'all want to call it. But a quote-unquote racist can sit here openly before the world and give Foundation Black Americans their flowers and say, yeah, you guys did, halfway build the country alongside other, white Americans, and you don't get the credit, right? So you would expect white folks to not give us the credit, but you don't expect black people, especially black immigrants, who come over simply because we built the country, to not give us flowers. Like, that is the ultimate hate. It's one thing to have harsh criticism and things like that, but when you are blatantly not acknowledging obvious facts, right? That's just super hate. And especially when the obvious facts catapult you, to the top. So basically people don't want to give us our flowers because our flowers are so well received, so respectful globally, that it'll put us to the top. Folks will be like, damn, these folks are exceptional. So when you don't give us those flowers, and you know where it could take us, you are the reason, or you're trying to be the reason why we're not there. So essentially, you're holding us down. Peace, Anthony. Peace, Urban. Mark, I am 6420. Clause. So I'm gonna start us off with Charlie Kirk, because Charlie Kirk, he likes to debate black people. I don't know what they are, so I'm gonna just say black people or melanated people, because everybody ain't black. So he likes to debate melanated people, dark people, on racial topics. All right, now keep in mind that the dark people, the melanated people he debates, are usually like supporters of his. Like, they might question some things he said, but they're pretty much probably black conservatives, or they got a lot of tolerance for conservatism talking points, no matter how racist they are. So, I'm showing clips of him debating them, and he's totally against reparations. He's a white supremacist who will not give black folks, Foundation Black people, their flowers, our flowers, by saying, yes, we did build the country, or, we put a lot of work in, where it should be acknowledged that this country couldn't be without our work. Okay, he wouldn't give us that credit, but that's expected. Like, who expect a white racist to give us credit? So when you hear dark people or Africans from the diaspora or the continent, people from the diaspora and the continent of Africa, when they repeat those same talking points, like, we can't help but to associate them with white supremacists and white supremacy. To us, you repeat their talking points, you might as well just be an identical twin. We really don't see a difference. So what a lot of Pan-Africanists and tethers are asking us to do is, when they repeat the exact hurtful talking points as white supremacists, to somehow don't see them as twins, to somehow let that fly and just simply attack or address or defend ourselves against white supremacists, white supremacy, and systemic racism. And we're like, yeah, that's not happening. We look at those talking points as equivalent as a noose, burning a cross in your front yard, or, a gun. Like, we look at those weapons, we look at those words as weapons of mass destruction. So, if a kid holds up a gun, and because he's too young to be able to, purchase or handle a gun, and he points it at you, do you automatically just dismiss it because it's a kid doing it? Or do you duck and, dip and try to get out of there or get that gun away from her? So that's what we do with the talking points, the anti-FBA talking points. It don't matter who you are, how old you are, what country you come from, and how dark you are. If you're using those weapons of mass destruction, we're trying to neutralize you. We don't see you as an ally. We don't see you as a brother, sister, relative, sibling, nothing like that. We see you as an op who's trying to exterminate us, eliminate us. All right? So that got to be very, very clear. Chad Smith, peace. We got Ayil Benizak. Solo, we got Urban Community. All right, so let's go to case in point. So no more talking. Let's get Reverend Greenbacks. I see that that BLM 2.0 is building up in DC. Oh, shit. Ayil says, morning, Ron. Bless up, Ron. Morning from the Britain chat room. Peace to you. Peace to the chat. Good morning. Okay, so let's get right to Charlie Kirk and his hatred. Let's just say hatred. His hatred for Foundation Black Americans. We understand why white people could hate us so much. Cannot understand because it just makes sense. The history and what they don't want to see and the jealousy, the envy, all those things. But when Black immigrants come over, when dark melanated immigrants from the continent of Africa, the Caribbean, come over here and behave the same way, feel about us the same way, that's unexplainable. That's unexplainable. Family, I bring to you Charlie Kirk, Golden Brown.
It's okay. No. What's your name? Guys, what's your name? Jackson. It takes a lot of courage to come up here.
Yeah, no,
Let's just take a deep breath. Okay, I'm not here to pick on you.
No,
and I appreciate it. No, it's okay.
I know
this could be very intimidating getting in a crowd like this. So just take a deep breath. Let me make your argument. I'm going to make your argument for you, and I'm going to tell you why I think it's wrong. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. So the argument that is being made, that you want to make, is that there's legacies of injustice.
Yes.
And that those legacies impact one generation after the other. And when those things get handed down, you have what is a system or a systemic issue that isn't just isolated in 2024. So the argument that you're making is that what happened in 1954 does impact 2024 of decade after decade after decade. Let me tell you my response to that. Of course, there is some truth to that. However, every culture, every person in this audience can point to.
So, family, forgive me. I just can't play the whole video flat out. That's pirating. That's stealing. So, I gotta give commentary between. All right. So the whole every group, every culture thing, went through something. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. But where they compensated? Where did America make good on them? Did America eventually reward them afterwards? Right afterwards? The answer is yes. Okay, so stop comparing people who were never rewarded or make good or compensated for. Stop comparing us to those who were.
Issues that families or generations prior had that we're able to overcome. So the question is, why is it that Black America is one of the only populations, that and Native American populations, that have not been able to overcome such evil, horrors, and injustices? Here's my perspective, and I want to hear what you have to say. Is that
before you give it, of course, he has to ignore, and which they do. A lot of conservatives, a lot of them, and even Black ones, you'll see. And we'll bring them more to ask them. A lot of them like to deny systemic racism, that it continues. They all like to believe that once LBJs and other folks signed papers leading to the civil rights movement, that all of a sudden white folks just stop being racist. People in positions of power who can deny, deprive Foundation Black Americans for civil liberties, just rights, and things that were eligible, programs that were eligible for. All of a sudden, they just have a change of heart. And white folks or the presidents and people, legislators sign documents saying, hey, Jim Crow and discrimination and all those things, racial segregation, all this stuff is illegal. White folks said, really? All right, okay, let's close this system of systemic racism and let's behave like true Americans. That's what these guys want you to believe.
the number one way to keep people out of poverty, lower the crime rate, and have a better society is whether or not you have a mom and a dad around. Would we agree that's an ideal?
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me address both that. Okay. Well, the crime rate is high because of that. You know, when you have unfair sentencing, right? And you got judges who give white people a lesser conviction, lesser penalties for and having the same upbringing, similar upbringings as a black person who committed similar crimes is not identical. White people on average, the numbers ain't even close. It's less than a foundation Black American. A foundation Black American could almost find themselves with a felony, a fine, and sentence, right? In prison, find themselves in jail, in prison. White people on the opposite end, same background, same upbringing, whatever he's saying. Let's say that white folks live in poverty, one parent, similar backgrounds as a foundation Black American who was also troubled, still get lesser time, no felony, rehab and work programs, everything else outside what they just give us, which is a time behind bars. So when you do that, you increase the crime rates for one ethnicity and not the other. Okay, and the whole Jim Crow that's what it's about. Penalizing one ethnicity, foundation Black Americans, and privileging another, which is white, anybody who was deemed white, considered white at the time, white Americans. So now let's deal with the fatherless things. Another talking point that conservatives, racists like to mention. Well, fathers got to get in the home. These guys have a 400-year history of taking Black fathers out the home. You can say that they are the sole reason why there are no Black fathers in the home today, historically in America and today. Then they look back and say, at the obvious, they look at the numbers, now they want to look at raw numbers all of a sudden. And then they want to cherry pick per capita and say, look, man, the father's not in the home. Don't give context, don't tell the truth about it, don't represent the data correctly, and just look at the numbers and say, hey, man, this is what it is. So we got to get fathers back in the home because fathers back in the home, households are great. They're going to be just great, as though systemic racism will no longer be a barrier, right? Once foundation Black American parents stay together, systemic racism just skips you and only attacks single parent FBA homes. That's just ridiculous. But that's most of the arguments.
Cool. Yeah. And so what happened in 1964 is that 25% of Black youth were raised by a single mom. Today, it's nearly 75%, about 70%. So that means that 1 in 4 Black kids will have a father around. Only 1 in 4. That's the number one issue happening in the country, and it's not because of systemic racism. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Okay. So complete lying. And no matter what this dude says, he's going to act like it doesn't exist. Now, when Tariq Nasheed says, I'm white, not say so, that's literally a factual statement. A lot of white racists, they just ignore stuff when it doesn't support the argument. And they'll just say you wrong because they say so. No facts, no rebuttal, nothing historical, no data. And they'll make claims like that and say I'm right because I say so, regardless of history and what the numbers actually say. Like, he can't support this with numbers that are not cherry picked.
So I think I misjudged you at first. Like, when you brought up the 1350 stat, I had just assumed that it was inherently eugenics based, kind of, So, and that's where mine came from. I think we are on the same page that we know what the problem is, and that's what I mean.
Okay, so basically, he must have said it earlier that foundation Black Americans make up 13% of the population in America, but they're responsible for 50% of the murders, which is another lie. Okay, that's not what the stat says. That's not what the FBI files read. They read that we are arrested at 50% of the murders in America. We are arrested. We're not convicted. So if you watch the first 48, you'll see that they arrest 3 suspects for murder, but maybe 1 get charged. Okay? 1 get charged. But the other 2 were arrested, but they were never charged. And they might have snitched on their boy, or maybe they didn't. Maybe other evidence points to the actual murderer. But the stat's going to read 3 were charged for murder. But the conclusion was only 1 was charged for murder. So that's a complete lie. The stats read that white people, Americans, they're going to commit crime based on a demographic. You're going to commit murder to those who live around you. And because America is heavily segregated, when a Latino commit a murder, it's going to be normally against a Latino person. Okay, when a Foundation Black American commit murder, it's going to be a Foundation Black American person because we normally live amongst each other. And yes, when white Americans kill each other, it's going to be against white Americans. And all of those stats are similar. So Foundation Black Americans do not murder each other at a significant higher rate than whites murder whites and Latinos murder Latinos. That's a lie. They purposely misread the FBI files and twist arrests with convictions.
No, and thank you for saying that, because I think we actually have a lot more in common in this country than the media would ever believe.
No, definitely, right? And
peace to Michael Mack. Michael Mack, real quick question: are you FBA or are you a supporter, critic? Let us know. But good morning to you.
Like what my point was, I was trying to say is, I don't think that we're doing
if I
enough
break up, family, let me know.
What my point was, I was trying to say is definitely, right? And like what my point
than the media would ever believe.
Definitely,
right?
Right? And like what my point was, I was trying to say is, I don't think that we're doing enough to help these Black communities catch up. Where as like they're underfunded and they're not, and they're over policed, and there's just these factors that are contributing to, like you said, these single parent households.
Yeah, like so we're not going to agree on this. This is where we'll disagree.
Up already this morning. Okay, so let's just make do what we have.
Communities catch up, where as like they're underfunded and they're not, and they're over policed, and there's just these factors that are contributing to, like you said, these single parent households.
Yeah,
like
so we're not going to agree on this. This is where we'll disagree, and that's okay. I have more of a view of Thomas Sowell on this, where he believes it's far more about culture, values, and worldview than stuff.
So Thomas Sowell is a Foundation Black American coon. He's a economist, and he comes up with all these twisted stats on purpose. Most likely, probably getting paid. I just can't see somebody and he's literally wrong. He twists that, so it's not like he is, making an honest mistake. He's purposely twisting facts, and white supremacists and tethers are swallowing them up. The twisted facts that Thomas Sowell put together. So Thomas Sowell likes to say, "Hey, man, it's not about systemic racism; it's about culture." And then he'll reference J.D. Vance's book, Hillbilly Elegy, and say, "Look, man, you see, J.D. Vance anecdotal experience pointed out the hillbillies that did this and did that, their outcome came out like this, negative, similar to Foundation Black American. But when they did what I did, J.D. Vance, and they do this and they level up and they become successful." What J.D. Vance leaves out is that every social program that he wants to end today as a Republican conservative are all of the programs he took advantage of as a poor hillbilly growing up. And that's what led to his success. We're talking about welfare, food stamps, affirmative action, whatever. He took advantage of financial aid. He took advantage of all of the programs that he believed needs to be ended today. Okay, so J.D. Vance was a horrible reference to use for bootstrap analogy, and that's what Thomas Sowell did. Thomas Sowell referenced J.D. Vance. So just misleading, misrepresenting. Not about culture. It's about systemic racism, and by saying it's culture, you're just blaming Foundation Black Americans, and you're acquitting systemic racism as though it doesn't exist today. It's not influential.
And over policing. So I believe there's not enough police in Black neighborhoods. You're going to disagree with that. Let's not even get into it, okay? Right. But I think we can ask a question, and you're going to disagree with that. Let's not even get into it, okay? But I think we can ask a question, and I want your opinion. Why is it that the single motherhood rate in Black America went from... I got
to stop it. I mean, that's common sense. Crime happens... I don't know how it's still playing. I paused it. Okay, peace to the watcher. I mean, it's common sense. If we know that every community is crime, if you over police one community, yes, you're going to have more arrests, more tickets, because they're going to catch people in their crime. If you have a community where you don't have police officers and police officers are willing to hold you accountable and charge you and arrest you and ticket you, you're going to have less people that commit crimes. You're going to get less tickets. So yes, a larger police presence can also deter crime, but it will also catch people in their crime. So the numbers will be skewed. It will be seen that this area has more arrests, more this, and crime is crazy over here. But put those same officers in every city, and you'll see similar crime stats, similar arrests, similar tickets. Everybody drives fast, break the speed limit. Everybody make same traffic violations. All right.
Neighborhoods, you're going to disagree with that. Let's not even get into it, okay? But I think we can ask a question, and I want your opinion.
Yes,
why is it that the single motherhood rate in Black America went from 25% to 75% over 50 years, where America did become less racist?
What, like, why did it?
Yeah, so what caused Black America to go from one of the strongest nuclear family communities in the country to now the weakest by far?
I can't answer your question.
No, that's okay. No, that's great. And again, it's hard to get up and have these conversations.
Okay, so this is a bad faith question. Because this ain't something you can answer in one 1 minute. You got to show how this ended up happening. For one, de-employing us, right? Not really employing us and not giving us wages when we were employed to sustain the family. That's not going to encourage marriages, for one, all right? And two, when they had unemployment insurance through the New Deal, the unemployment insurance only benefited those who worked in certain fields, right? It didn't extend to sharecroppers, right? So these programs incentivize or discourage marriages, because who wants to get married knowing they can't take care of a household, knowing they're going to struggle? So that kind of all that type of stuff. Then you had programs that asked that the man don't be in the house, like the Man in the House Act. That also discouraged relationships with Foundation Black Americans. That rule was not mandated in white households, right? And there's facts and stats. You had white men living in the home with their wife or woman under the ABC, Aided Dependent Children Assistance Programs, and that ended up being welfare. Okay, so when welfare got extended to Foundation Black Americans, the restrictions became harder, and they're asking for things they didn't ask white people. So welfare was initially created for white women in 1935 under the New Deal, and they were not put under the same restrictions. The requirements and eligibility requirements was not as strong as it was for Foundation Black Americans. So anyway, these things help lead to single homes, and we're talking so employment or the lack thereof, assistance programs that require the man to not be in the house. Then you have the drug epidemic that was largely the agencies of the government helped that. Then you had mass incarceration, locking up Foundation Black American men for nonviolent crimes for football years. So all these things play effect why we have single parent homes largely in Foundation Black American societies compared to anybody else. But Latinos are not that far off, by the way. They're not that far off.
Here's my opinion. My opinion is that, yes, there was some social welfare that subsidized single motherhood, which means it's easier to get cash from the government if you say you are single than if you are married. I think we can agree that's stupid. That shouldn't happen, right? But I would love your perspective on this. Do you think in Black culture, getting married and staying with one woman for your entire life is elevated and celebrated?
No, not at all.
I think that's the problem.
I think the problem stems from a lack of education. I think these communities don't.
Digital Group Productions make a great point. I didn't think of these black folks can be staged. These can be average black conservatives because they feel like you can see that they are what you call it, celebrity shocked, lack of better words, when they come across Charlie Kirk, and they be having the dumbest rebuttal, the most robotic questions, so Charlie Kirk can shine with his bullshit.
Don't have. I don't think a lot of them have. I think these communities don't have. I don't think a lot of them have the proper education or learning from previous to realize what will lead them to a more successful future. I think that if we funded more education in these systems, then these men wouldn't be so focused on stuff like gang violence to get protection or money or
you have a
other stuff like that, and then end up in prison and then end up with their child.
So I played where he was against. So I didn't explain the single parenthood in like less than 30 seconds. Has everything to do with systemic racism. Has nothing to do with black culture. Like he said, we were married every chance we can be married, higher rates than white Americans. All of a sudden, we just stopped wanting to get married, and we just said, you know what? Let's try unmarriage. Let's try unmarital life. Let's try this. Like that. It's just dumb to even suggest that. J.J. Barr's piece. All right, so let's finally finish addressing his claims why he's against reparations. Charlie Kirk. And this is a standardized white racist stance. Okay, so for one, they'll say the enslavers are dead, white folks. And they'll say the foundation of Black Americans who are enslaved are dead. And therefore, no one owes anything. All right, that's what they would say. But listen, and then they'll deny, as you see him deny, systemic injustice has long-term effects. So reparations are not solely about individuals being alive or dead. So they misrepresent what it's about. They are about, reparations are about correcting ongoing injustices and wealth theft that they cannot deny, that still benefit white Americans today and still disadvantage foundation Black Americans. That's what reparations is really about. Okay. So if you look at the Homestead Act, which I talk about so often here, 1862, where they gave over 270 million acres of land to whites, okay? Whites, that was undeserving. It wasn't owed to them. They didn't work hard for it. It was just given to them. Okay, 1.6 million white families still benefit from this inherited wealth today. That's 1862. 1862, and 1.6 million white families still benefit from that inherited wealth today. But according to Charlie Kirk, that stuff don't matter today. It just disappeared. And most conservatives take that point. Most extreme conservatives, even the black guy we had here twice. Okay, now watch this. The Freedmen's Bank of 1865 to 1974, only 9 years in existence. It lost $3 million in FBA savings, which is equivalent to $80 million today. So it was negative $80 million. Okay, but why was it owed that much? Why was it in arrears? Okay, it collapsed due to white mismanagement. White people sabotaged it, undermined it. Okay, and how did we accumulate in today's time $76 million in 9 years? Like, can Charlie Kirk explain that? Can Charlie Kirk explain foundation Black Americans, the freedmen? They just were emancipated, they living free from bondage. They're able to work. How did they accumulate in 9 years in today's time $76 million? Look at redlining and the FHA that I speak of so much. I think it's the Federal Housing Act, not the Fair Housing Act of 1968. Okay, that was in the 1930s and 60s. It denied 98% of federally backed loans to FBA families, Foundation Black American families. 98% of their denials of federally backed loans were to Foundation Black Americans. All right, so that means damn near 90, almost 100% of it. They're federally backed loans. That means white folks can default. Like, there was no risk for the banks, basically. So when the banks gave white folks a home, there was no risk of defaulting and they're left with an unpaid mortgage. They got to sell it all. No, if white folks lost his home, the federally backed means the feds were going to pay it off. They're going to cover it. What about the New Deal when they had the Social Security Act in there? Okay, 1935. That excluded domestic agriculture workers. I just talked about that. So what they did was when they gave Social Security and unemployment insurance, all that stuff under the New Deal, what they did was they realized that our ancestors, worked primarily in domestic workers and agriculture workers. So they said these two fields of employment cannot qualify for Social Security, unemployment insurance, or anything else. Even ABC, which was welfare before welfare. Okay, so now I says, how did that affect us? 70 to 80% of Black workers at that time, 70 to 80% of us were excluded. We were domestic workers and agriculture workers. We were excluded from Social Security, welfare, and unemployment insurance. Okay, so reparations against Charlie Kirk lies. It actually does. I'm talking to the wrong mic. It actually does pay routinely longer after harm occurs. So these folks are dead and gone. Japanese Americans received reparations in 1988 for World War II internment. Holocaust victims and their descendants received compensation from Germany and corporations well into the 2000s. And as you know, Italians that were brutalized and murdered from white supremacist mobs were awarded reparations, but they were dead, so they didn't receive them. Their families, right, their relatives received the reparations, cash money. It wasn't school and things they wanted to give us. Education, they got cash money, and their relatives received it on their behalf. That's all we're expecting. So reparations are about the intergenerational transfer of benefits and harm. So if descendants of enslavers still benefit, then descendants of the enslaved are old. If descendants of the enslavers, white folks, are still benefiting from systemic racism and slavery today. The money just ain't disappeared. Okay, so then Charlie Kirk said this is another white supremacist talking point. Jews came here with nothing and became successful. Why not Black Americans? And he don't just say Jews. He says, all immigrants, period. We hear this stuff. Serena, she got a video of a tether saying her dad came here literally with $1.75 and started a business. Okay. So, and she said all that to disrespect FBA. It's like, hey, he came with $1.75. You guys had much more than that. And look what he did and look what you didn't do. So we know what that's coming from. All right. So listen, the comparison between Foundation Black Americans, Jews, or anybody else, it ignores this systemic sabotage. Watch this. You want to bring up Jews? Fine. Most Jewish immigrants arrived after slavery was abolished and during Reconstruction or later. Okay? So most Jewish immigrants arrived after slavery was abolished and during Reconstruction or later. They didn't come during slavery, okay? It was no laws targeting them for permanent racial subjugation. Jews were not banned from owning property, accessing FHA, VA loans, voting, enrolling in state colleges, starting businesses in white areas. Meanwhile, Foundation Black Americans were legally segregated for a century, Jim Crow. Their entire towns like Tulsa 1921 and Rosewood 1923 burned down. Okay, that didn't happen to nobody else. Okay, we faced convict leasing, not the Jewish community and nobody else. Essentially re-enslavement by another name. That's the peonage system. So Jews, Italians, Irish, and other immigrants were allowed into whiteness. That's what I was talking about earlier when I said rewarded. They were wronged and then made right. They were rewarded whiteness. Like that was the ultimate goal for these folks, to be called white, that you're called white. You're protected from those harms and ills. And now you receive rewards and benefits of being whiteness, like the 1935 GI Bill, the 1933 HOLC Act, and FHA we just talked about. Okay. Foundation Black Americans, we were excluded by design and punished for even modest success. Modest success. Okay, so now Charlie Kirk will say this now. Charlie Kirk, and not just him. This is a talking point from white supremacists. And by the way, we might have a brother tune in at 10 a.m. Get a dude perspective. He might tune in at 10 a.m. He say he'll try. And maybe he's ready now. I'll check them out in a second. All right, so Charlie Kirk and other white supremacists would say, well, recent immigrants didn't enslave anyone, so why should they pay? Okay, listen, newcomers buy into the system and they benefit from it. Immigrants inherit the privileges of white America, especially when they are non-Black. They benefit from the cumulative economic advantages built on Black labor. Okay, that's undeniable. They gain access to neighborhoods, schools, and jobs that Black Americans were locked out of. Example, the GI Bill. It helped build a white middle class, and so did the HAOC, FHA, all that stuff. Black FBA Black veterans were largely denied this benefit, but immigrants arriving later walked into the economy that benefited. That benefit created, right? That benefit, that GI Bill, that racial disparity, immigrants walked into the economy of that lopsidedness. Okay, so reparations are not about punishing immigrants, Charlie Kirk. It's about repairing what was stolen and building equity into the system that everybody, like immigrants, now enjoy. Then Charlie Kirk and other white supremacists will say, hey, well, my ancestors fought to free the slaves. They fought on the side of Union. So we did our part. We're exempt of any type of reparation status or claim or payout. Okay, so now the Union, as we know, history tells us the Union fought to preserve itself, not to right racial wrongs. Like, stop it. The North went to war to preserve the Union. We all know this, and prevent the South from seceding. If they did not go to war to liberate Black people, like pensions, right? Receive less. The cotton industry, insurance, banking, like they burned the money. Like, one forfeits responsibility because their ancestors did the right thing, quote unquote, especially when the systems built on slavery and segregation still operate today. But Charlie Kirk would say it doesn't. Okay, so this is like saying my grandparents donated to a charity, so I shouldn't have to pay taxes today. No, that's crazy. Okay. So the real issues about reparations, okay, are about systems, not individuals, not your lovely ancestors who you believe were down for the cause. The U.S. government enabled and sustained slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, and mass incarceration. It has the responsibility to repair the harm. So we're suing. The major claim is towards the federal government. States and even countries in Africa gotta wait. Okay, now the wealth gap 2023. Median white family is almost $200,000. Median Black family is about $25,000. Okay, so we got $200,000 the median white family compared to $25,000 founded Black Americans. Okay, so these disparities are not coincidental. They were built over generations of exclusion, violence, and theft. Okay, so Charlie Kirk, if theft occurred for over 300 years and the profits were inherited, and the victims never received repair, then justice demands that we address the harm, not dismiss it because time has passed, Charlie Kirk and the Charlie Kirkians. But just saying that enslavers are dead is like saying a bank robber is dead so you can keep the stolen money, right? That's a great analogy. All right, so we're done with Charlie Kirk. We're going to catch back up with what we were watching yesterday. We're going to briefly go over this. So I was just going to catch you back up how this conversation started with. I didn't catch this. Oh, Dr. Wright with a W is on the right. Dr. Mayat's on the left. Okay. So I want to just catch you up what they were talking about and why.
What year did you get your license? I don't know. Different states have different stuff. Year? We don't even got to go into the license. When you go fill out a test when you're in school and they ask you this, that, and the third, this, that, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be totally honest with you. And I know we got to get back to our topics. We already a few minutes in. I'd rather feeling Black than African American. Because Africans don't even fuck with us.
Wow.
Because they don't.
And Americans do?
Well, you're American, Mace. You're born in America. When you go to the Olympics.
So he said Americans do. So that was just a bad faith rebuttal because he's saying it in a particular context. He's saying, like, in general, when they come over here, there's no society, there's no business, there's no genuine friendship with folks coming from the 54 countries in Africa. Like you'll see that friendship, you'll see that business with folks, Africans from the Caribbean and Foundation Black Americans. Like you will see friendship there, you'll see business there, you'll see genuine socializing, frequent the same bars, same outside events. You dig? Everybody's playing basketball, whatever, dominoes. But when it comes to Africans, I said this before, there are no enclaves like that where Africans or people from the 54 countries of Africa are hanging out with FBAs in like the average setting. Like we only really see them on a job or in business. We really don't socialize them. We really don't socialize with them. Hey, go over that way. Make too much noise. We really don't socialize with them on a regular basis outside of business and work. You know, them being our boss or our doctor, you know, and coworker. We really don't socialize with them at all. Like they're not at the basketball game. They're not at this thing. They're not at the cookout. We're not at their cookout. Like there's no dance festivities where we're all together. So a lot of us conclude that they purposely avoid us. Because how is it possible we just never run into them in our daily affairs? So that's what Cameron, that's the context Cameron is using, how they don't mess with us. They don't F with us. So when May said, well, Americans do, like, he totally just missed that. But that's what happens when you just respond quickly. You're just trying to do a gotcha.
And when I say African American, you go over there, they call us Yankees and all that. They fuck with us, but we're not from the motherland. We're from America. So I rather say I'm a Black American. When we go to the Olympics as a country, and somebody Black is fighting from the United States, you don't say African American. You say American. You don't even put a color on it. It's an American fighter fighting a European fighter, or China or Japanese or anything. You're known in the Olympics as an American. It doesn't matter what color you are. You're an American fighting against somebody from Cameroon or Senegal, whatever. The point being is they don't categorize it when it's world competition, but when it's other shit, it needs to be.
That's good enough. I'm going to fast forward back where we left off at yesterday around here. So obviously, Dr. Right on the right side, the Pan-Africanist type of historian teacher, whatever, history teacher, and she disagrees. She believes we should be called Africans in America. Okay, I would love to talk with her, you know, about that. All right. So now I want to show you this image. Hold on. So as some of y'all know, I was asking you guys to, and I got to make another copy. So everybody who did Spirit Within, I still can't remember y'all stuff, but when I was putting it on online Notepad, when I shut down my computer, it's supposed to save it, and it just didn't save nobody's. So maybe another time I'll ask you guys, hey. So I was asking folks in the chat, just to catch you up. I was asking Foundation Black America, or anybody, not just Foundation, anybody that's either Foundation Black American or consider themselves African. I was saying simply, hey, tell me when you did your 23andMe, African ancestry, whatever you did, what was the largest percentage of a given country, and what country was that? And people were putting Nigeria, Ghana, all type of places, right? And it was like no higher than maybe 25%. Okay, so I had a conversation with a Foundation Black American woman just about 2 days ago, and I brought it up. She don't know anything about what we're talking about. She don't know anything about delineation. It didn't reach her just yet. And I like pretty much just sprinkled a seed on her. I really didn't just go all in. But I did get to her family tree, all right, and her DNA test and things like that. And this is what she sent me. Okay. So she pulled it up on her phone. I said, hey, you mind screenshotting that? And she did, because we don't see any personal information. We don't even see her name here. Okay. So family. Because she was saying what she likes to do, and this is what we do erroneously. She wants to combine all the countries that's in the continent of Africa that's on her that's shown right there, and some others that's not shown. So you want to combine all of them and say, well, based on that, that makes me 70% African. I said that might make you 70% African, but what's an African? That's some shit we just made up. There's no African man. Like there's no continental African. You got people from countries and people from tribes, right? Just like there's no Central American person that you just have in mind. There's different countries there, and they have great, unique histories that need to be respected, great, unique culture. You can't just lump them up and make them a monolith or this big one Central American, you dig? So same thing with Africa. That's not how that works. You don't combine the percentages and say, I'm just African. You know why? Because if you combine all these percentages and that makes you African, then that means then a Nigerian can't be an African, or somebody from Senegal can't be an African, and Benin and Togo and Ivory Coast and Cameroon. Why do I say that? Because they don't have all these different percentages in their DNA. So if that makes us African, then it excludes them from being African. You did, because they don't have that issue. Somebody from Nigeria, if they do a DNA test, it's not going to say 25% or 26%. It's going to most likely say 96, 98, 99%. Okay, they don't have this mixture of percentages there. So then they can't be African like you. So anyway, 26% Nigerian. So I said, listen, I said, sis, if you had a whole dollar, right? And you had 26% afterwards of that dollar, but you believe you have the whole dollar or anything close. She said, no. I said, of course not. That's only 26%. So I said, so how could you be, go ahead. I said, how can you be Nigerian and you're just 26%? She has a poodle, like one of those expensive dogs. I said, they sold you a dog that was 26% what your dog is, right? For the same price, would you buy it? No. I said, exactly, because it's so far removed from the wholesome of a poodle. Like maybe you might consider buying that same dog if it was 95% the poodle thing, because that's close enough to the whole, to the dollar. But 26% lets you know you're not that. You have little of that in you, okay? Then I said to her, well, if 26%, this is Pan-Africanist logic. If 26% Nigerian make you Nigerian, then there's 22% of England and Western Europe make you European. And she said, no. I said, so how can 26% Nigerian be enough to make you Nigerian, but 22% of England don't make you English or British? Okay. So she really was confused. I said, yeah. I said, because you're just a mixture of different things, and people from the continent of Africa don't have that issue. They're not a mixture of different things. I said, and that mixture of different things with the American culture and the American experience and the slave legacy, that's what makes you Black American. And I said, you're foundational because you founded, you built the foundation of the country. Okay, and she had no rebuttal. She kind of like embraced it, and she still, I snuck in it, but she still didn't even understand there's a movement, there's a thing out there, there's a wave out there, there's a trend that we're emphasizing the foundational on top of Black American, and we're excluding anything that says African. So I said that to her without saying it to her. I just gave her this right here, her DNA test results back, and was like, yo, how the hell are you African with, okay, there's no such thing as that, but you do 22% Benin, Togo, and it just get less, 7% West Bantu. Then like later on, she had 3% as European country, but the 22%, and then check it out, family. Then I ultimately dropped the bomb like this on her. I said, okay, now if you let's let you combine all those African countries that come to 70%, you're so-called this generic African, and all have, let's say, 30% of European. Okay, so you would be more African than Europe. Then explain to me, why the hell do you look like Mariah Carey? You would think with all of that African, remember all that genetics, melanin is dominant. It's the white folks got recessiveness, Okay, you got all these dominant genes, these dominant African genes, 70% of them in you, and only 30% of recessive European genes. Why do you look like Mariah Carey? You would think you should be looking like Shabba Ranks right now. At least Wesley Snipes. So I said, you mean to tell me 22% of English, of Britain, just 22% was more dominant than all of those 80%, 70%, 80% percentages of countries that's in Africa. So I'm like, come on, man, we got to just stop the lies, stop the delusion. Like, yo, you are not the generic African, and you're none of those small percentages, not even the English ones. All of that, with the legacy of slavery and the American culture, all of that makes you American, more specific Black American, and even more specific foundational Black American. Okay, so there you go, right there. All right, now let's get back to the discussion here. So, and that's where me and old boy gonna pick up if he calls in.
Clark said what? Land, culture, people. Okay, so when we talk about using the term Black, well, there really is no Black land. There is not really a Black people, because racial pathology, racial categories are construct that Europeans created, right? And there is no Black culture per se. We have constructed Black culture, which is really African culture in America. We have taken a conglomerate of all our African cultures and called it Black culture here. But there is none of those, but there is Africa. There are African cultures and there are African people, right? So what he's saying is that you cannot look on the map and find Black anywhere, right? But you will find Africa on the map. Okay?
Come on,
period.
Teach.
So John Henry Clark, that was his contention. Kwame Ture, he said, listen, between Africans in America and African Americans won out. And yes, I think Africans in America speaks to more who we truly really are, right? If we are still culturally African. That being said, I still will give a plug to African American, only for this reason. Those of us who live in the United States, we know this is the blue flame. This is one of the hottest points of the struggle. It's endless, it's intense, it's dangerous, it's brutal. Okay, we're about to talk about the academy, and that's just one aspect of all of the intensity of the struggle here. So for Black people, African people, to still say Africa first, when in actuality we can go all around the world and almost no other group does put Africa first in terms of their identity, then I'll take that. I'll take that. That's sort of a plus. You and I had this conversation before, and a lot of people had a problem with that.
Oh, they were mad with you. They were like, what about the I'm Afro-Latina.
Afro, what about Afro? What is an Afro? I mean, what about it?
they got mad with you. I'm Afro. Yep. They was like, I'm an Afro-European. But then no, they say Afro. Yeah, they say Afro-European, Afro-Latino. They was like, we put it in our names too. They were mad with you when you said that.
But listen, I mean, Afro, what is Afro? I mean, so somebody could define that for me. That's one thing, but I don't assume that Afro means that you're an African. Certainly, I mean, and the term, that term has its own history. So great if you want to call yourself that. This is one thing I want to say. I never tell people who they are, right? So when I'm teaching, that is not my objective to ever tell people who they are. I give them the history, the context, the cultures, and I let them decide. They have to come to that conclusion about who they are. But the reality is that, saying Africa first puts us on the continent. It connects us to our source of power, really.
But, I mean, this is fantasy Wakanda talk, our source of power. There's no source of power in the entire continent that's being reflected in those that live in those countries. All of them are subjected to some type of foreign force, whether it's Chinese people, Russians, or European powers. I don't see this power she's talking about. And we have power right here in America. Like, we're in the greatest country in human man known existence. And we're throwing it away, all this, and we built it. And we're gonna throw it away to come to somebody else's home and play guests, right? And just act like we don't see what we see. Act like we don't see a third world country. We're gonna act like this is Wakanda, this is the first world country, and they just got jobs everywhere, and there's just so many opportunities. Like, this fantasies talk gotta stop.
And why shouldn't it? Why shouldn't it? It says that is our place of origin, and that hyphenated, that other thing, American, is simply my location. Okay?
Come on, teach.
Or the place where I hold a passport. We pay taxes. We got the American passport, okay, and we pay for it, right? And matter of fact, sidebar, our ancestors, those who pushed and fought for the Reconstruction Amendments, the 14th and the 15th Amendment, that 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law, is what allows us to have that passport. That comes out of the Black and African freedom struggle. So we can take that. We can have.
Okay, so you see now these Pan-Africanists, they have a problem with just saying Black or Black American. Like, that's part of their religion. So don't say, now they will agree that we're Black. They will agree that we're Black Americans, but they won't use it. They will purposely and normally just say African American consistently. And they will act like they're interchangeable, but they won't never interchange them. Okay, they're going to just say, they'll act like those two words are interchangeable, but they themselves will never interchange them. They will consistently just say African American because they're pushing this religion, they're pushing this agenda. Okay, it's just, and it goes nowhere. Like, nobody's
that's fine, and still be African, because that is our place of origin. Let me say this: nobody ever challenges other groups of people when they have a continental identity or an identity that is connected to a continental place. Meaning, nobody says, well, you can't say European, but they do. You can't say Asian, but they do. What about the Asian American Hate Act, right? I mean, you can say Asian. Everybody has a problem with anybody saying, any of us saying African, but that contention doesn't exist when it comes to European or Asian. You know, I thought that was I think that's really interesting. And you know why? Because everybody knows Africa is the seat of our power. Africa is the seat of our liberation, period. And Europe ain't.
But somehow the continent can't liberate itself. They need Russians, they need Chinese people, they need European powers. Okay.
Supporting the whole world and could not. They were resource poor before this game even began, over 500-600 years ago. Asia can't do that either. Okay. Connecting ourselves to Africa is connecting ourselves to the source of our power. Period. That's what it is. And so when people start to revisit why they use European or Asian and make challenges to them, then they should make challenges to us when we invoke Africa.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And while you were talking, you made me think of this book right here. I'm getting ready to share it on the screen. Shout out to the Read Book Club. We read and discussed this book. And look, I put this comment up here by Brother Eric B. He said, the problem today is that we allow any fool with a microphone and camera to have a voice in the media. And I agree with my brother Eric B.
I disagree, because that full comment is subjective. They make anybody a fool and speak. And when it comes to Pan-Africanists, consistently the fool just be foundation Black Americans. It's never anybody from the diaspora.
The book called Birth of a White Nation, the invention of every for countries to the in it. And she also said that what the government did
initially made up the white underbelly peasant classes of Europe.
Teach.
Okay, all of
For
the
land,
peasants,
aspirin, height, diamond,
really
crystal.
what I like to say, the underbelly of European society.
Okay, so my fault. I was looking at something. Let me read the comments. So Sleep Bay is back with the Lineage Love Super Chat family. Please go ahead and like the Super Chat from anybody, no matter what the price is. It could be $9.99, it could be $1.99. Please like it, heart it, because that's equivalent to being in church and you don't have the will or the liberty or financial freedom to put dollars in the plate, and you'll just tap the plate out of respect for those who did.
And they were sent here because they were perpetually, how would you say, oppressed. They were involved in serfdom, right? So they were tied to the land. So they had their own issues around class and caste. They could escape all of that by coming here. And they become the peasant classes. They're the peasant classes that become white Americans eventually, because they rebel against who? The aristocracy.
Yes, that's right. Teach that.
Right? The British elite. And so they reject their ethnicity, they rejected their caste and class, and they take on the culture of whiteness. Just to be white would have.
So, Teresa, you said where they're recording from? Well, they're both in America. And I'm assuming that they're in their places of residence, but both are in America.
For them privilege.
That's right.
The same privilege they were denied in their homeland. And so, yes, to understand America is to understand that it is an expression.
So the sister on the left, she's supposed to be pulling up, which we're working out a time and day where the sister on the left can pull up. So this was a year ago, and the sister on the left do not, from her work today, a year later, she don't agree with everything that she once said and believed in this video. So I think you should give her a little more liberty, a little more open-mindedness when she hop on. And I'm going to ask her flat out a year later, like, hey, some tough hot seat questions. And we're going to see where she, agrees with us at now and what she still hold on to. But the sister on the right, I would really love to speak to her because she's all the way in. She's anti notion of foundational Black American ADOS. She's hell bent on Pan-Africanism and calling ourselves African American.
Expression of white nationalism. This is why they don't have to say anything other than I'm American, and that is synonymous.
So now that's another thing that Pan-Africans and Tethers like to do. They like to ignore the issues from the diaspora, the disrespect from the continent of Africa, and just focus. And they like to focus on just two other ethnic groups. They like to either blame or hold accountable foundational Black Americans, or blame and hold accountable white Americans. That's all you're going to ever see them speak harshly on: white Americans and foundational Black Americans.
Anonymous with white. This is a white nationalist project. This is why they have such a problem when they say we've got to take our country back. We've got to go back to our founding. Yeah, what are they talking about? Well, the white man.
So we might have perspective pull up. He said 10 o'clock. That's in 4 minutes. So hopefully I got some questions for the brother. I watched his video over out of respect for him and his content, so I don't misquote him. I don't ask a dumb question that was already answered or something he didn't say. I watched his video over this morning, so I got about 10 questions I want to ask him.
And has to fight for this and that. What they're saying
is, we want to stay tuned in for that. Okay, there's going to be a little brotherly dialogue, and we'll see.
That this country was founded to give us privilege.
Teach.
Right? And we are involved in a common pathology called race. And we have asserted that we are white. They've never been white before. Okay? They've always been their ethnic group and their class, right? Now they are simply white, and that affords them what they believe is privilege. I call it pathology. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Doc, another thing, and shout out, it was a person in the chat that made me, and I mentioned this book earlier today. I think you and I talked about it earlier on the broadcast. But this book right here, family, make sure you get it. You know, Africanisms and American culture, you know, by Joseph E. Holloway, family. Make sure that you get this book. I have it actually downstairs I have a library, well, a bookshelf here and a bookshelf downstairs. Family, make sure that you grab it because, you know, you said something earlier, Doc, when you talked about cultural insulation. So you said that when we were brought here, right, when we were kidnapped and brought here, okay, you talked about how our culture insulated us, which helped us to survive. And so I want people to understand that, you know, when people go somewhere, you take your culture with you. You take your mores, your forays, your beliefs, the way you dress. You take your way of life with you. You take that system with you, right? Yeah. And so we have, right, and I remember Dr. Amos Wilson, he talked about this in his book, Blueprint for Black Power, how he said that when he answered the question, what is Black culture? He defined it, and I'm paraphrasing, as an amalgamation of, he said, you know, American culture, and he said in African culture. That's what he views it as. That's a mixture of it. We brought those things with us, and we do things that our ancestors did, our African ancestors did, and not even realize it, Doc. Yes. You know, and we just do it, and we think that it's just, no, it's something that we brought with us. And I think that James Holloway did a wonderful job breaking down those Africanisms that we do and that we don't even think about doing it. You know, we in the hood and somebody passed and we pouring out a drink for them. Come on now. Or we putting up shrines. Right. We make, you know, you go to, you know, and I'm speaking of what I've seen in Baltimore. You ride past some places and somebody got shot, and then you see balloons and teddy bears and candles and liquor and the person's favorite food. That's a shrine. That's what our ancestors did. You pouring out liquor. That's libations. That's feeding them. We used to feed during libations when we're feeding. I even have an ancestor shrine that I feed and put my grandmother's favorite, her juicy fruit or her Pepsi, or, you know, with a picture. So these are Africanisms that we.
Hey, family, I really don't like that comparison. Like, so one of the main connections that they give us with Africa, they say like libation. They want to compare. I'm guessing that when the Africans do it, it's spiritual and righteous, and they want to compare a bunch of murderers and thugs pouring out liquor for the dead homie who did nothing constructive, positive, nothing righteous, nothing spiritual, out there. Like Tupac says, slanging rocks, kicking up dust. So in our complete negativity, right, our criminal behavior, you want to say, that's African libation. See, that's African. Pouring out some goddamn poisonous liquor for the dead homies that was no good. Most likely killed in gang war. If he'd have lived another day, he'd have killed somebody else and the other side and pouring out liquor. So they want to compare that. I mean, that's, to me, that's just cherry. I just looking at anything we do, saying, look, let's find that in Africa. Look, they do that. Like, we got to stop. We got to stop. Pouring out liquor for a bum dead homie is spiritual connection with Africa.
That we brought with us. Absolutely. You know,
then let's ask this question. Do all Africans practice that, or do a particular tribe, particular region, particular country? Do all Africans practice that? If not, if the answer is no, then again, you're forcing this stuff. You're Africanizing us, because does that make them less African that they don't do it? How come they don't validate them to be Africans? Why does it got to be us? What about I don't even want to go for there, but it just petty. It just the crazy attempt, the narrative, the agenda to Africanize is ridiculous, and we all know what that comes with. It comes with deportation.
The things that we're drawn to and that we're attracted to, that we bring that, like you said, that family, being family oriented people, being communal people, we brought that with us. Being spiritual people, we brought that with us. These are Africanisms, right, within the context of America. So when people be like, I'm not African, no, you're not African. As Kwame and Nkrumah said, you're not African because you were born in Africa. You're African because Africa was born in you. Doc, I land my plane. Go ahead, Doc.
Yes, no, absolutely. I agree with that. And to take it a little bit further, I think that we are very unconscious of it, but the biggest statement, because a lot of us get caught up on the genealogy of it all, right? And I want to go too deep, but folks will say, well, we're not African anymore because I got this and this and this. No, those are things that happen to us. And you're going to either claim victory over that, or you're going to shift and claim that. Very few people claim the identity of people who commit atrocities against them. Okay? But we do have a peculiar scenario here and in the Western Hemisphere where folks will talk about, I'll give you an example. I went to an event where there was an exhibit of African traditions, spiritual traditions. And there was a woman there who was responsible for the installment.
Okay.
Long story short, I noticed that it was a conglomerate of spiritual traditions being represented. So we ended up having a conversation, and we started talking about language and Ifa, and how one should speak to the Orisha and Egungun and our ancestors. And I said, well, I respect tremendously that people here who were colonized by one of the most linguistically dominant groups, the British, who will go to anybody's country and then say to them, you don't speak English, like they should. But these African people here who into the tradition of Ifa will learn Yoruba. I don't know if you've experienced that. They will learn Yoruba, okay?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I know. We are speaking Yoruba. That being said, other groups will engage Ifa and still speak their colonial language to the Orisha. So we were, talking around this issue. Finally, the person made a statement that, well, I have European, I have indigenous, and I have African. Now, mind you, we're still talking about an African tradition. Okay, if you have all those things, maybe you should practice those traditions. But okay, here we are. She went on to say that I have all three, so I practice all three. And I said, okay. What is the concept? I said, so this is a spiritual tradition. This is an African spiritual tradition. I don't think the Orisha were waiting on the Spaniards or even Native Americans to say that they existed, and they were probably on the scene before everybody else. That being said, I said, but whose spirit do you have? Because those encounters were not by love or through love. Certainly the African and the European encounter, okay? I said, so whose spirit, since this is a spiritual tradition, whose spirit do you have? Do you have the spirit of a murderer, a rapist, or a thief? Because those were the encounters. Let's be very real.
Let's be real. Let's be clear.
Okay? It wasn't out of love. I said, what I know for sure is that I have the spirit of my African ancestors who claimed victory over that. And I know for sure I'm not a murderer, a rapist, or a thief.
That's right.
So there you go. Whose spirit? You're already in our tradition. You're not over there practicing Native American tradition. You're not practicing, a European tradition. You can go do that, but you have come to an African tradition. And how dare you try to say that you don't pay homage to the African spirit that claimed victory over that and still survives to this day. We got the best thing. You understand? What we lost, we got back. And the thing we're fighting over, the war is still raging. We're fighting over our righteous African minds. We got our bodies back. They took our bodies.
Come
Okay?
on.
They owned
Come
our
on.
bodies. We fought a war. We claimed victory over the institution of slavery. That's why you and I can sit here and say what we want to say today.
That's right.
Yeah, right? We nobody is about to crack the whip over us. And that is a victory given to us by our ancestors. So we got our bodies back. We took our bodies back. We're fighting over our minds. And this woman wanted to tell me she pays homage to all three. No problem. What I'm saying to you is that I don't revere the spirit of a rapist, the spirit of a murderer, the spirit of the thief. They don't have any presence in me. You get what I'm saying? I am not their manifestation. I'm the manifestation of my African ancestors who survived and claimed victory over that. So there you go on the identity piece. We all should ask the question. We forgot to talk about it before. Who are we, right? Fanon, what Fanon talks about. Who am I? Am I really who I think I am? Am I all I ought to be? We all have to grapple with that. Who are we, right? Who are we? Are you an African in this place? Or have you become something else after all of these atrocities that have been committed against you? Have you become your oppressor? Dr. Sharshy McIntyre talks about that. We want to fight the oppressor, but the biggest battle is to fight the beast without becoming the beast.
Woo!
You understand?
Oh, Doc,
without claiming their identity, right? Because we haven't liberated our minds. So this is why people like you and I are still in the classroom, because the war over our minds, our righteous African
intellectual
minds,
warfare,
our minds that haven't forgotten who we are and whose we are, is still raging. Right? So we're struggling. We're engaging in battle over the minds of our people.
Ashe. And shout out to the Cultural Social Podcast. She said, y'all remember when Cameron and his label mates used to run around with the American flag on their clothes and call themselves diplomats? He's right. Or she's right. I don't know who's behind Cultural Social Podcast, but he or she, they are 100% right. I do remember when the diplomats used to wear their bandanas in American.
Still talking. Okay, that delay is crazy. Okay, so now we're getting to the root of it. You see, it's not even about foundational Black American. They have a problem with America and the American flag. Okay, you hear it. They was when Mace and Cameron, not Mace, wasn't Mace, but when Cameron and Jewels and Dipsets were rocking the American Eagle, right, everywhere. They were not claiming Foundation Black American ADOS. They weren't even claiming delineation. They weren't even thinking about American culture at all, like that for Black folks and how we fit in with our genesis. That was not on their mind at all. They were doing it for a fashion statement. And look at this. They are bringing that back up. Like, hey, see, the American. So they have a problem just with America. They're anti-America and they're like super pro-Africa. Again, that's what he was last year. Dr. Maya, a year later, I watched some of her content on the left, the yellow sweater. Her mind has shifted a lot towards our talking point. She understands the need now to delineate and to self-identify, but she's still holding on to some Pan-African views, which is no problem. You could be a Pan-Africanist and be FBA. You can be Christian, Muslim, you can be atheist, you can be gay, straight. I mean, those are just your personal choices, but as long as you are acknowledging the lineage and you uphold his lineage, respecting lineage and being on code and fighting for the lineage, that's first and foremost. Everything else we'll tackle later, right? There's steps to this. There's steps to greatness. Okay. I hate when it does that, man.
Flag Dipset when they used to rock the American flag. Like, I do remember that. So Cameron doing this shouldn't be a surprise to us. Nah. It shouldn't be a surprise at all. Absolutely. They can absolutely have them. And I want to shout out Real Talk and Power. Shout out to that brother. He's also the president of the Baltimore chapter of UNIA family. Okay. They are having an RBG gala on February the 24th. Reach out to that brother ASAP. Get your tickets. The RBG Gala is going down February the 24th. I don't have the flyer. I didn't download it onto this computer, but I'm going to download it and start really pumping it up. It's on February the 24th.
That's old.
What are your thoughts when you hear people like Cameron say Africans don't like us? They don't see us as Africans. What are your thoughts when you hear things like that?
Well, I could only say what I've said privately to a relative of mine. You know, Africans don't like us. They sold us a step further. And my thing was like, and Americans, like what May said, Americans don't like you either. And what does that have to do with anything? Matter of fact, not only do they not like you, they kill you. And they, you know, like King said, the ultimate logic of racism is genocide. The ultimate logic of racism is genocide. I want to deny you all these things, and ultimately I want to deny you life. So, you know, my cousin said the same thing. And I said, basically, one, you're not liked or loved here. Matter of fact, you get murdered here. And racism itself is going to shorten each and every one of our lives, okay? Because it permeates every aspect of our lives. Two, she went on to say, well, they sold us. And I said, first of all, if you want to talk about someone selling you, instead of talking about some random African person that you think sold you, I want you to know that these guys here sold you well as well. Sometimes 12 times in a lifetime, okay? And you have their last names. Okay, so you know who they are. So if you want to locate someone who sold you, they're right here. They're still here, okay? Their families are still here, all of that. So, you know, my thing is this with the Camerons of the world. You will get your lesson, and it will be hard. And, you know, you will have your wake-up call. I'm not going to say what it is, but, you know, Paul Mooney used to wake-up call. Everybody gets it. Michael Jackson got it. Everybody got the, you know, in wake-up call that Paul Mooney used to talk about. And so we're over here when your consciousness raises, because Garvey talks about that. When all else fails to organize the people, conditions will. So Cameron has a lesson waiting for him, and it's all good. When you figure out who you are, we're here, holler at us. That's it. I don't think one should force his evolution or development or growth, because he won't hear it. And there's so many people who don't hear it, and that's okay. That's okay. They're allowed to be who they are, identify as they do. You understand? Because this is a place in particular in America where you're going to get reminded. And so it's either going to be low or high grade assault that shocks you into understanding who you are and where you are. You know, as one of my professors always say, define yourself in the context of time and space. So you can be delusional all you want, but you get those, you get the wake-up call consistently here in America. And for those who are delusional, then it's harder for them to adjust, you know, and then they become extreme all of a sudden, you know, when they get that, you know. So good luck to him. Good luck to him.
Doc said good luck. Doc said good luck to him. Look at this. Look at this, Doc.
I just wrote the dude. Did I? No, I didn't. I wrote him just now. I wrote the guy. So I'm playing a video. They're speaking about Cameron. Something he said last year about he's not African American, he's American. I played Raven Simone. I played Floyd Mayweather. I played celebrities. I played Morgan Freeman. I played Smokey Robinson. They all said the same thing. We're not African American. That's what our ancestors said as well. Same thing Booker T. Washington said. Same thing Frederick Douglass said. We're not African. We're American, and we're saying it now, right? Loud and proud. James Brown said, "I'm black and I'm proud." He didn't say, "I'm African American, I'm proud." They're called the Black Panthers, not the African American Panthers. Black power, not African American power. And Elijah Muhammad, the religious sect of us, said the black man is God. They did not say the African American man is God. That's all. I'm just stating simple facts. So we're listening to this. I'm giving commentary here and there. So stay with me, because I'm trying to make sure, you know, I'm playing this to buy time for the brother perspective to hop on. Let's have a dialogue. He had a lot of controversial thing to say about FBAs. He sees as a cult and things like that. I think with a conversation, a friendly, brotherly, honest, respectful conversation, I'm sure that I can pierce through those misrepresentations of us. So try to stick with me as I play this video and give commentary, and wait for Overboard to call in, because he did say he might be ready around 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock.
And shout out to my supporter on IG, just brought this to my attention. The supporter actually on IG said, shout out to the 8 African countries who are offering citizenship to African Americans right now. Like, this is going down right now, fam.
Oh my God, they want a bag though. You're not coming there because you can't find unemployment in America and you can't find stable housing in America. You say, you know what, well, let me go to Africa. Maybe I could get some type of unemployment there. I mean, some type of employment there, or at the very least, I can't find employment, but I can live off the land and I don't got to worry about, rent and taxes, property taxes and things like that. That's not happening. Africa wants you to bring money. Come with your American bag. So we got Nikita White in the chat. Nikita White, I'm logging on now. Power respect. All right, cool, brother. Nikita White, peace to you. I'm gonna rinse you up. Just like the video. So we got proper perspective in the chat right now. See, I told you the brother's willing to have a respectful dialogue about this topic. It's not, always a belligerent conversation, a combative conversation. It's just about perspectives. And I feel like a lot of people who are against FBA are against us because of bad experience with an FBA person. It's like, well, we can't use that as a measuring stick because the first bad experience with a Pan-Africanist or a Jamaican or a Japanese person, that doesn't permit you to hate the entire country and every country, man and woman of the country. So I feel like people have bad experience with some people who say they're FBA and they condemn the whole ethnicity group.
Family. So look at this. Number one, you got Ghana. Okay. You got Ghana, with the right of abode. Okay. Right. You got Sierra Leone. Look at this. You got Sierra Leone embracing descendants. Hold on. Look at this. Nigeria embracing dual nationality. 4, South Africa, a bold move in strengthening ties. Hold on. Gabon, strengthening ties with the diaspora. 6, Cape Verde, towards inclusion, national identity.
Yes.
Hold on. Let me see. Zimbabwe, opening its doors. And lastly, 8, Kenya, offering a new home. Shout out to my girl, Traverse Culture. She's over there. This is a sister that's putting in work. She's over there and she's bringing diaspora and Africans there to learn about Kenya, and she's setting folks up with real estate, homes, and all kinds of stuff over there. So stop playing games, y'all. We got the receipts. Stop acting like, you're just making blanket statements. Oh, Africans don't like us. But then you have 8 African countries who are offering citizenship to us. You also had a Pan-African convention that was supposed to go down in Ghana a few days ago, and the government quickly, put an end to that. But the point I'm trying to make is that they're over there on the continent promoting Pan-Africanism. They're over there on the continent. They're not just talking about it, they're doing it. And shout out to those. Go ahead, sister. Go ahead.
At one point, right. So it's real. We can live on the continent. We can return to the continent. I mean, and honestly, the lives we live are so much better than you plan it and you set yourself up. You can live well in Africa. There's no problem with that. I will say this, it is a whole nother vibe to live in a place where there's not the constant threat of death. Here you do live, and we don't realize the pressure we live under until we leave, right? And when you have the option to leave and live somewhere else,
Right, all right. So I know the proper perspective in the building. Big. Once you're ready, you can come off mute and we can have a great build, great dialogue. Are you there, brother? Yeah, I cannot hear you. I'm not sure if you can hear me. My microphone is working right now. So I know it's kind of choppy where I'm at, but I can't hear you at all. So you might want to use your mic. Yeah. Proper perspective. I see you there. I see your mic is unmuted, but I don't see any activity from your microphone. I think family, I think he's working on that. So let me just play the video so we're not at dead silence until his microphone is showing activity.
It's a whole.
Whenever you're ready for the microphone to act, you just say, introduce yourself and I'll stop the video.
Whole different, life. It's a whole different life, So yeah, that's not true though. I didn't experience any hate living on the African continent.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
And Doc, how long were you over there? Because I remember you were in Nigeria, right?
No. I lived in Senegal.
Senegal.
And I briefly taught at the University of Sheikh Anta Diop. So I left in the end of 2004, and I lived there for a year, and I taught at the University of Sheikh Anta Diop, which is previously Dakar University. And I really just came back to get my PhD, so I feel like I got trapped.
Got you.
Because I thought I considered doing it there, but yeah. So I didn't experience what and then the level of violence that we experience in America is just unbelievable.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
At large and in our communities, and these are it's different on Senegal in particular. Gambia in particular are very peaceful countries. Black press in the United States.
So we got Fly Lee in the building. I hope she was over there talking all that yang. So Fly Lee, peace to you. Welcome. Subscribe. We got proper perspective in the building. He's on a panel. His microphone is just inactive right now, so I think he's working on that.
He is the key negotiator of Liberia.
Stay tuned in for that. It's going to be a powerful dialogue.
In the Liberian crisis, where he is able to secure the future of the nation, and he is the person who organized the most effective debunking of a piece of racist U.S. legislation called the African Exclusion Measure in 1915, amongst many other things. So that's what's going on in the book. It tells all of those stories. It establishes what the Tuskegee model of sustainability is and was, and it gives you a different perspective of Booker T. Washington and his transformation from someone who was not as ignorant as Cameron, because he always loved Africa, because he loved his mother. His mother to him was the symbol of African people, of people who had produced her, had to have some good in him as far as he was in them, as far as he was concerned. So he always was facing Africa.
Hey, proper perspective. I do have a phone number, so if you're having technical difficulties with the Zoom link, I do have a phone number. Let me put that in the chat. Peace, FLA trucker, Florida trucker. I forgot about the other alternative. So if you're having issues with the Zoom link on your end, let me put the call-in phone number. Teresa Thompson, peace. Tiger Crane, peace. Yes, yes. Yes, what do you want? Okay, right there. All right, so let me do this for Tiger Crane. I see you, brother. Let me do this for let me do that. So the bad peace. Hey, okay, so the proper perspective. He's in the building, he just I think his microphone is having an issue. So the proper perspective, I put the phone number. So there's a phone number you can call, and maybe that way works better. So the phone number option is in the chat. Okay, you can just click it. I'll matter of fact, I'll repost it. The chat's going fast. The chat be lit. They be really active in there. Peace, broad time. Peace. So let me put the phone number in there a few times so you can have a chance to call in. Okay. Let me get you. All right, there you go.
And ultimately, he gets to do something significant for Africa and African people, which was one of his early desires and dreams. So that's what it is.
And Doc, when I say that you changed my perspective on Booker T. Washington, you changed my perspective on him, because I never ever would have made him or classified him as a Pan-Africanist based on the limited knowledge that I had about him. And you caught hell, Doc, when you published this book and you said Booker T. Washington in Africa, and you said the making of a Pan-Africanist. All people were on your head. They were like, what? No, he was this, he was that. And they were, but you know what I can honestly say? No one came back and refuted anything that you said in the book.
Oh no.
Nothing. No one. So they talked about you. Oh.
I'm on mute. My God. I'm talking from the wrong device. Yeah, I heard me. I was watching the microphone activity for the other device. Yeah, so Booker T. Washington, like, come on. Now he's a Pan-Africanist. What is the definition? Because his works was not Pan-Africanist works, right? He never said he was. He said he was a proud American, and that his focus was in America, right? He felt like he was honoring his ancestors in America to build in America, right? He wasn't going nowhere. He wasn't looking nowhere else. But, you know, it's almost like how the LGBTQIA plus, no, not them, I'm sorry. It's almost like how the feminist movement could look back in history and start renaming people as, renaming Black women as just feminists. Madam, she's feminist. Hey, she's, they just start renaming people stuff. All right, yeah, come on. Now, Booker T. Washington. Okay, I hear you now, proper perspective. I see your mic. Baker Boy, peace. See you in the chat. Okay, try to say something. The proper perspective. I just see your mic was active, then it just went out again. But I put the phone number in the chat. That's more easier. So again, the phone number is in the chat with the meeting number. If that's more easier to have a dialogue, you can click that. Yeah, but Booker T. Washington being a Pan-Africanist. Okay, well, let's hear her out. Let's give her a chance.
Oh, the sister don't know what she talking about. Booker T. Washington wasn't no daggone Pan-Africanist. And you said, well, read the book and then come back and have a conversation with me. And that's when you heard crickets.
And nobody's come back. It's years.
It's been years. When you put this out, what year did you put this out, Dr. Wright?
This one came out in 2015. You know?
Right.
Okay,
So 8 years. 8 years.
Yeah.
This book has been available.
Yeah, 2015. So when you say nobody came out, like, it's just all due respect. You gotta understand, you don't have a big name like Roland Martin, like DJ Academic. So can it be likely that your claim just went unnoticed? Is that possible? Like the folks who would, the folks who would actually give you criticism, pushback, how about they were unaware of your work? Is that possible? So it's not always nobody refuted it, nobody gave criticism, so therefore it's a fact. I'm sure there's some white supremacists in their white supremacist enclave. They're all white cities and towns that got books too that go unchallenged that nobody ever heard of, and now it's a fact. Nobody challenged this book about Black people, so we're right. Black people are just primitive, all of them, and white folks are just heavily sent. Like, that's not how that works. What's a more
it's a good read
bragging right if scholars read the book and then couldn't find criticism, then that's more of like the beat your chest. Okay, scholars have peers have read this book, it's peer reviewed, or even if it's peer reviewed and no heavy criticism, then you can say, okay, look, it's peer reviewed, there's no heavy criticism, so therefore it's a W by default. Something like that would be more genuine.
It's not one of those reads where you put it down and you're like, I can't get through. It's not the blueprint for Black Power. The 800
on the panel. He's having microphone issues. Matter of fact, let me tag him because maybe he can't even hear me. Okay. So I just told him in the chat, hey, I tagged him, proper perspective. I called a phone number if your Zoom link isn't, responding. I got limited time. I'm trying to get my son dressed and fed and things like that. And we gotta head to my cousin's house. Hey, doing some food over, some brunch. We gotta catch a train, so limited time right now, brother. Proper perspective. So you're on the panel, your microphone had shown some activity, then it went away really quickly. But the phone number is there. You can call the phone number. You don't have to use the Zoom link if you're having issues with it.
68-page book, like it's not that. Right. This is a really good read. So it's no excuse for them to have not read and analyzed your book, right? And they haven't challenged it yet. So people talked about it. But then went.
So it's true.
And then some people talked about it and had to humble themselves. They had to eat a slice of humble pie and come back and say, Dr. Wright. But see, that's what intelligent, honest people do. That's what intellectually honest people do. You may have a particular.
Matter of fact, should I add, because Dr. Mayat is going to be a guest on the panel as well. Should that be a question? Like, how is Booker T. Washington a Pan-Africanist? And I don't want people to say, you got to read the book. How about just tell me? How about what did the book conclude and why? So I got to read every book to get information out of it, especially when you bring it up. If you make the claim, you can't make a claim and say, hey, read this 600-page book, or you can't. If you make the claim, the burden of proof is on you to at least substantiate it, at least explain why you believe these things. Hold on, let me just change the name. 1 second. Do not see anything. My screen is sharing, so your number won't come up anyway. But let me just. But if I don't share, it will. If I unshare, it will come up. So let me. Proper. I think it's you. This could be anybody calling it.
If you can hear me,
okay.
I called in.
Okay, I can hear you now. Okay, great. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing okay.
Great. Yeah, so, I watched your video. Your video came up on my feed because, we do a lot of FBA titles ourselves, right? We go by that term, but just not that, right? So you got some FBAs who just say the FBA, nothing else. You got ADOS, nothing else. We are not that strict. Okay, we understand what everybody's trying to do. That gives a unique name. Everybody's trying to identify the lineage, so we just call it the lineage because we know what they're trying to do. They're trying to name the lineage. You got some say American freedmen or USA freedmen. So we don't over here. We don't get caught up in what you call yourself, even if it's African American, right? If you want to call yourself African American, but you're exclusively saying that folks that have a legacy of slavery, a lineage of slavery, are the African Americans, we don't have a problem with that. You can say black, you can say Ninja Turtles, because we know what you're describing. You're describing the same people I'm describing or identifying. Okay, that's all. So we'll debate that later in time, like the best fitting term. But I watched your video. And you don't go with the whole acronym thing, but you are Black American, right?
Correct.
Okay. Do you believe your ancestors are foundational to this country? Like started the foundation, laid the foundation down?
Yeah, that's kind of obvious. Yeah.
So would you say your ancestors were foundational Black Americans?
As long as you're just sticking to that label to identify people who have been here because of the transatlantic slave trade, who were kidnapped from Africa, put in the chains, put on the boats, and brought over here, yes.
Okay, can I ask you that? Who kidnapped them from Africa?
Say it again. Who kidnapped Africans from Africa?
Yeah.
There were some continental Africans in a few kingdoms that participated in the kidnapping process, but everybody was thrown onto boats built by white people. Everybody was shipped overseas, boats manned by Europeans, sold on auction blocks, 99% of which were managed by the white people that came over here.
Yeah, so I agree with some things you said, brother. Are you familiar with the panelists on the video I was sharing? Are you familiar with some of them?
I'm familiar with some of them. I didn't catch your live like from the beginning. When I tuned in, I think I saw Dr. Mayat on screen. So I'm a little bit familiar with her.
Okay, yeah. So she's going to come on sometime this next week on the panel, and we're going to talk about some things that some things she believes in and don't believe in. But I only said that to say this, brother. There is no credible research in this world that would remotely suggest that Europeans kidnapped a significant amount of Africans, brother. The research says this. The research says in the early 1400s, Europeans tried to do that, and they were utterly unsuccessful. They said native diseases themselves killed them off. Africans themselves killed them off. They didn't have the military power they have today or later, even when they did the Berlin Conference in 1894. They didn't have the military power to go to Africa and do anything significant. So they came back 200 years later with their checkbook. And it was like, hey, man, how much? So you have something called slave raiders and slave raids. So you got Queen Nzinga from Mali and Ghana. So Africans at a 90% rate largely were the kidnappers of Africans. And so everything you said after that was true. But the way we got on that ship was through the hands of Africans.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why I asked you who kidnapped. Because I know some people like to believe that white folks were successful in snatching up Africans, and they were utterly. And you can do any source. I can read your sources. You can pull them up. I don't care where you go, brother. Anywhere. No credible historian is going to say the opposite.
Okay, hold on. Now, hold on.
Yeah.
You said in the beginning this was going to be a conversation and a discussion, not a debate.
Yeah, not a debate. No,
I'm not going to
give you a here.
okay,
So
and I'm saying
that wasn't big.
right.
I was
So
giving
no,
you like
what
a
I'm
historian perspective. Like everywhere you research, is nobody's going to say
no.
There was African white Europeans who kidnapped and they were successful. They're going to say they flopped, failed, and they had to come back and purchase from Africans. So that wasn't the big. I'll just giving you the historical analysis on that.
Well, again, we can agree to disagree.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because I understand your positioning, and you said there's no credible research. Now, one of the reasons I say I don't do debates is because I'm very familiar with how people play with debates. Now, we can say I disagree with the research. Okay. But when you say there's no credible when you say there's no credible research, that's always going to be up for interpretation. What you determine as credible, what I determine as credible, is going to always be at odds, or may always be at odds. Number two, when you say kidnap, when I say kidnap, unless we agree to exactly what that means, again, it's all up in the ether and it could go either way. Now, I don't necessarily mind if you wanted to give me a historian that I could research who says there's no credible evidence, and I had the time to go and look at that research and see why they're saying it, then I might come back and say, something, I agree with you. But I'm not going to just say, yeah, you're right, there's no credible research when I've researched it. I have read books from various historians, and I know that I have read about Europeans who did actively participate in the quote unquote kidnapping. And so that's why I tried to say it the way I said it. There were some Africans who participated in the kidnapping, but there also were Europeans who participated in the kidnapping. It depends on which geographical location you're talking about. Africans that were quote unquote kidnapped from Africans that were kidnapped from the coast, it was about, now I may have my numbers wrong, but there was equal participation. There were whites, there were Europeans, and there were Africans that were actively kidnapping Africans from the coastal areas. If you go further, once you get further in, so for instance, let's say, for example, we're talking about Ghana. Any Africans that got kidnapped in the area of Kumasi, there wasn't that much white presence. They couldn't make it that far inland. So they relied on the Africans in the Kumasi area that would do the dirty work and then bring them down towards the coastal areas of Cape Coast. But in the Cape Coast area, there were Europeans who were taking participatory roles in the kidnapping. So I'll just say that. But again, how we characterize our terms has a lot to do with whether or not we say we agree or disagree, or you're right and I'm wrong, and I'm wrong, and I'm right and you're wrong. But go ahead.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so we can move on past that, but I just want to say what I said in general was, but I would love for you in the chat, you could list those scholars or books that said the opposite. But what I was saying was not just a scholar.
I would love for you to do the same thing.
Yeah, sure. Sure, no problem. I got videos where I don't mind doing it again. But what I was saying was any random. So I was saying it's not about choosing a scholar you like, right? As confirmation bias or that I like. I was saying any just random research, any random internet research, there will be nothing remotely close to that. That's what I was saying. Okay, but we can move on for that because I see what you say. You say what you say. We're not debating. We're just establishing, what we read in our education. We're just presenting it to each other in the public. Would you consider yourself a Pan-Africanist?
Yes, I would.
And how would you define it in your words, Pan-Africanism?
In my words, Pan-Africanism is the framework, mental perspective, maybe ideology that all Black populations on this planet essentially have the same common enemy and need to find ways to work together to advance ourselves and overcome the enemy.
Okay, so
the problems that foundational Black Americans have with the system that is set up under the dominion of Uncle Sam are extremely similar to the problems that Ghanaians have with the governance issues that they have with Uncle Sam.
So who would be
and so on and so forth. Say again?
So who would be the enemy in your opinion?
Who would be the enemy?
Yes.
The enemy, I mean, there are all kinds of terms. You know, they're depending on if you want to look at it from a religious view or socioeconomic view. But I'm talking about the governing systems of Western civilization. So depending on how you look at it, that could range from America, the government, the US government, the administrations, all of them, no matter whether they're Democratic or Republican. Because while they all may have some differences in how they treat domestic affairs, they all have a lot more heavy-handed, unfair practices when it comes to their international affairs.
So would the enemy
be the United States government will work hand in hand with the French government so that the French government can exploitatively extract resources from Haiti, and all of the 13 or 13, I think it's 13 or 14, but I'm not sure, but the West African Francophone countries, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are like the three that has everybody's attention at the particular moment. But the US government will work with France to continue that exploitation. The US government will work with England to continue that exploitation, and so on and so forth.
So just for clarity, you say the government, because the government isn't like a person, isn't like one individual walking around like Thanos kicking over buildings. You mean like people within government, right?
I mean the systems that are in place.
Right, but systems
are no, I'm not talking about any
people, right?
Yeah, systems are ran by people.
So now, so is that anybody? Is that any person who's helping to run those systems, or are those people
no
system race-based?
I would probably sooner say that the systems themselves are race-based, but I will not discredit the notion and the idea that there are individuals who hold positions of power in various government agencies that will make decisions to maintain, to institute, to instigate exploitative problems and oppressive practices and strategies.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So now
you have president, you have vice president, you have the ambassador to this, that, and the other. You have people who lead various agencies, and so on and so forth.
Here's the next question. It's not in line with that. So did you ever do a DNA test, like an American?
Yes.
Okay. And what when you read there, just the largest percentage, it was what and for what?
The largest percentage. Well, I did 3 DNA tests. They all placed me in West Africa. The African Ancestry, Black-owned company, placed me in with the Bisa ethnicity of Burkina Faso. And they also have a small presence in northern Ghana.
So what I mean was, you know how it says it would say Nigerian, Ivory Coast, and they give a percentage. So what was the largest percentage you had of an African region or country?
I mean, if I can pull it up, I'll pull it up. I don't remember the percentages.
Was it higher than
offhand?
20?
Was it higher than what?
15%? Because like most people, when they do that, it'll say like 50% European country, and maybe 20% African country, then 7%, and then it adds up to 100%, but it'd be like in small percentages.
Mine was the majority of African countries, if that's what
I
you're
got
asking.
that, but I'm saying the individual country, because they name them all individually,
Well,
and they the percentage of each one.
Let me see. I'm trying to pull it up.
Yeah.
I'm pulling it up now, but I haven't looked at this in a while, so I'm having an issue trying to read how it's set up.
It's just
but
okay,
for instance, off top, it's showing 30% Nigerian, 11% Western Bantu.
That's all.
Okay.
I expect you to, give me hope. Yeah, I just want to know the highest percentage in what country, because I was asking my chat to do the same thing. Like, what is the, because some people, they'll say Nigerian for some folks. Some people say something totally like Ivory Coast to be like 25%. It's like interesting. They're all like West African, Central African, but it's interesting how, people are from different percentages from different countries. It's not all the same country. That's all. I was just curious in yours. Now, do you consider yourself? So this might be a two-part question. It's kind of easy. So, do you prefer? I'll say that. Do you prefer to call yourself African American over Black American, or you use them both interchangeably? One of doesn't matter.
I typically use them both interchangeably. It doesn't really matter to me.
All right.
I'll go so far as to say after reading certain people, I started to think we should move beyond that. But I know that's way far down the road for most people. So
right. So now, do you understand the argument? I'm not saying you agree with it, or the position of, let's say, Adolf Freeman, and that people call themselves those acronyms. Their position, why they don't want to use the word African and self-identifying, and why they feel the need to self-identify, a term more exclusive to those who had the slave experience in America.
Do I understand?
Yeah. Because you got people who represent it that sit in FBA, but they don't really do a good job representing the major talking points.
I would say, at least from the opening gate, I think I do understand why, and I would key up on what you said. A lot of them are not doing that great of a job in their articulation.
So now, do you believe that's necessary to self-identify in 2025?
Now, do I believe it's necessary? I would say it depends on what the topic and what the reason or the rationale behind the need. There are some things that I would say there are a couple of topics that I have heard, that I have looked into, where I'm like, okay, I can understand the need for a sharper identification. Again, when I do find those, I don't hear people moving on, working on, talking about that particular topic. I hear people moving on things that I'm like, yeah, that's not okay. I gotta go.
Yeah,
I've been in online conversations. I've been in real life, sitting down breaking bread with brothers, and I'm like, yeah, okay. At this point, I take my leave.
Yeah. So let me say this to that. So that, even with my chat, because some of them feel like we should talk about certain things over certain things, and they like prioritize it. So I'll share the same thing with you, brother. What's not your cup of tea? It was not important to you. What was important to you is not necessarily important to the next man, the next sister. So now do we devalue? So because somebody want to talk about something that's very dear to them, do we devalue them and say, no, you need to talk about what I feel is important for us? See, that's what we discourage over here. We feel like everybody truly have a voice. We feel like each person is an individual. Nobody owns them. Nobody leader of them. They can freely express whatever they want, and they can prioritize what's important in their life. We have no right to tell them, what they want to talk about over anything else is less important than what I want to talk about. So we don't do that over here. We're not a cult. We don't have a leader. We let people freely determine what music they want to listen to, what books they want to read. We don't say, hey, man, you listen to this, the power perspective. You can't come over here. We don't do that. Like, even though, like, let's say if I hated your guts, I still wouldn't advise not one person to avoid your channel. What I would simply do is explain why I won't, patronize or visit. But I do not encourage folks to join Islam, to disjoin Islam. We don't do that over here. It's freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of everything over here. So I don't like when people prioritize like what's important. Like that's each individual own opinion, and they might have an agenda, because there's a lot to go into that. So let me explain why we delineate and self-identify, and you let me know what you agree with and disagree with, and I'll speak slow. So
Okay.
We want to delineate for something particular. So we understand that America never wanted to make right how they wronged us, right? Jim Crow, slave legacy, peonage system, convict leasing, all that stuff. So, and we understood when it was time for them to yeah. So we knew that when it was time to face it, they will always just invite an influx of immigrants. Let me start off by saying this, not to pull rank anything, but I do study the history of immigration in the country. So when the Homestead Act came around, they gave all the white folks over 270 million acres of land, and then when we negotiated just simply 40 acres a mule to about I think they had 270 million, we only had like 300,000 total acres of land that was divvied up to 40 acres to each person that was doing. Okay, so once they got their land, and by the way, they got their land, it was not owed to them. They didn't fight for it. It was just completely unearned income. It was a gift. It was welfare. It was just given to white folks freely that came from Britain and those places. As long as it just tilled land for 5 years, it was just free access to land, which was wealth, right? And as a matter of fact, middle America, 1.6 million white folks right now benefit specifically and directly from that Homestead Act of 1862, that free land. But when it was our time and when it was given to us, okay, Abraham Lincoln helped with the Emancipation Proclamation, 1868, 14th Amendment citizenship. When it was given to us, he was assassinated, and it was given right back to them. And what they did was they allowed another large influx of immigration. So what I'm saying is every time America is forced to look at the ills and harms they did to us, specifically the lineage, they will sidebar, deflect, and just do a mass influx of immigration. So now fast forward 100 years later, when the civil rights movement kicked off and was passed and approved, 1965, what they do, instead of acknowledging the wrong and affirmative action being exclusively for us, because now everybody's colored people, but when the sign said colored folks only, they weren't talking about Hispanics, anybody else. They're talking about people with slave lineage, right? So what they did was they passed the next year after the 64 Civil Rights Act was signed to guarantee protection and freedom of, to outlaw desegregation and discrimination. The next law, what they do, they passed the immigration law. Here go a bunch of influx of immigrants again. All right. So going back, this has been their strategy, is to just deflect but not neglect, and then do a mass influx of immigrants. So we want to be exclusive. We don't want it to be colored people, because those colored people, those signs weren't for them, and whites only, those signs were not for them. So we don't want to be grouped up with folks who haven't shared the same experience, because if we're grouped up with them, then they get to eat off what's exclusive for us, for what was the harm that was caused to us. So we want to delineate for that purpose. So we don't want anybody eating off our plate that's something for us, whether they're Black immigrants, Latinos, Chinese people, because you had the Chinese Exclusion Act that was suspended in 1965. So you had so many folks that was barred from this country that was allowed to come here, and then they was allowed to eat at our table for things that were exclusively just for us. So that's the main reason why we're saying no. We reject the terms you gave us, because those are all inclusive terms, right? You say African American. Obama was the first African American president. He's from Kenya with a white mom. He has no slave ties, no slave experience, nothing. He's called African American. And like you said, it's used interchangeably, so they're also called Black Americans. So we said, okay, so both those terms were supposedly exclusive, but now they're inclusive. So now we're going to give language to these terms where nobody can be, grouped up with us. So we have ADOS, American descendant slaves. Obama can never be ADOS. He was never a descendant from American slave. And we have Foundation Black American. Obama can never be FBA because his lineage does not go back to the foundation of this country. So what you agree with that and what you disagree with?
Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me? Hello? Can you still hear me?
Okay, brother, you breaking up? Go ahead.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. I can hear you better.
Okay. All right. I wish I should have just like slowed you up. That's a whole lot.
I know. But
so I'm saying it's difficult for me to say what I agree with and disagree with because it's like you drop like 20 different points. But so I'll say I recognize, and I think that I would say I agree with the idea that they never try to honor the debt, and they always try to maneuver and figure out ways not to honor the debt. I think that's what I heard from you saying. So, right. And so yes, I agree. I agree with that. They always do that, and they will use anything available to them to do that. Now, as far as, yes, so they will deliberately say, let's not write the civil rights legislation, so that it applies to just the descendants of the slaves. Let's write it so that it applies to everybody. I agree that that's what they did. I agree that that's what the civil rights leaders agreed to. We could have an argument as to whether or not they should have made that agreement, but they made that agreement. I don't have an issue so much with trying to say, look, let's go back and rewrite this. Let's go back and try to fix this because you're clearly dancing around the board game so that you don't give me the money that you owe me and you can just pick and choose favors. Okay, I'll agree with that. The legislation needs to be addressed and fixed so that whatever it is that we're looking at, if we're looking at set-asides, if we're looking at hell, to some extent, that's what they were attempting theoretically to do with the DEI programs that they came up with after George Floyd was assassinated. Again, with every plan and program that we work on, they are going to try their best to loophole themselves back into not doing the right thing. I would agree with that. And I would agree that that should be addressed, fixed, corrected, managed, so that like you're never going to stop them from doing it, but so that you always have legitimate legal recourse to smack them every time that they do it.
Okay, so I'm just saying this right here in response. We can move on. Sorry. Okay, so you said political leaders, activists signed on to it. So I took that as like you were trying to shift the blame. But let me say this.
No, how is that? Oh, no, hold on. How is that shifting the blame? The legislation was presented. The legislation was negotiated. It was presented by and for and through the civil rights leadership. So that would be like the MLKs and the Thurgood Marshalls and so on and so forth. They fought for that legislation.
I got it, but I thought we were not debating.
No, I'm saying, how am I shifting the blame?
Right, but you can ask that question on one side, because you said some things I agree with, I didn't agree with, but I didn't cut you off, because that's debating, right? So I was letting you finish, and I was going to respond, and you could, respond back. But I didn't want to debate where we cut each other off. So shifting the blame, because the way bills are written, okay, this is why there's a problem with Republicans and Democrats. So there's never going to be a bill passed in Republican favor that the Democrats didn't introduce some of their stuff that they want in there, and vice versa. There's never going to be a Democrat bill passed where Republicans don't slip in stuff they want. That's how bills work in American history. Okay, so when we wanted to end segregation, legal segregation, legal discrimination, well, at that time, you had the party shift. So the Republican Party was switching over to the Democratic Party, Democrats switching over to the Republican Party. So during that party switch, the Republicans wanted some things not there. And this was the only way they were going to end legal Jim Crow. And so much of us were dying and being harmed and being marginalized and deprived and denied the legal Jim Crow. We just wanted that just to end. Yes, we couldn't get so basically you're not going to get a perfect bill when you got an opposing side not totally agreeing with everything. That's just how bills work. And this is why they assassinated Dr. King, to make sure other things, it wasn't like we were all intact, sitting there like, okay, cool. Our leaders got assassinated during the final bills, the most important bills, which was the FHA of the civil rights movement. Okay, so during the FHA writing, Dr. King was, of course, assassinated before the FHA bill was written in blue. So I don't think he signed off to that one. And that's like the most important one of the whole civil rights era of 1960s. So and I don't believe A. Philip Randolph was at the table either. So you got those at the table just by default because other folks couldn't be there. Either they were dead or assassinated or jailed. But anyway, that's how bills work though. There's a give and take. It'll never be completely for you. There's going to be some dirt in there. But the overall thing is, hey, the main talking points should be addressed. And the main talking points were to end legal Jim Crow, which it did, and add federal protection, which it did later, better later, but it did that. So now I gotta ask, this is unfair, right? You said every cult leaders, and I probably don't believe that now. Talking with me, and you believe Tariq Nasheed is the co-leader. I don't have a leader. Tariq Nasheed is not my leader. It's my brother. That's it. He can never lead me, right? He can only, be a peer or brother to me. Matter of fact, nobody can be my leader. No, nobody can be my leader. Not even Dr. King. Nobody can be my leader. You're just gonna be a brother to me, or a big brother to me, little brother to me, little sister, big sister. That's it. Okay, and I may consider your experience and advice and consultations, but nobody is my leader. So with that being said, and a lot of us here believe that, and a lot of FBAs believe we're all cult members, or you think that maybe blindly following Tariq Nasheed, but other folks are not. Other folks got their own mind.
Okay, well, I would say that clearly I don't know you. I don't know you. I've never had any interactions with you until you came up on my page.
Yeah.
So I can't say that I know nothing that I said would literally be directed towards you personally. Do I believe so? No, I don't think I have no way of knowing, are you a cultist or a cult believer or a cult follower or anything like that.
Okay, because you made a blanket statement, Oren. I watched your video over before you hopped on because I didn't want to misrepresent you, misquote you. I wanted to be responsible, right? I wanted to maintain integrity. I watched the video over, and you made the blanket statement that FBAs are cult members. So, and I'm FBA. I consider myself. So I consider you, even though you said you don't know me, never met me until I came on your channel. You still blanketed me, in spite of all that. You still blanketed me with the title cult member. That's all. All right.
Okay. Well, I believe that I even saw in your comment in the comment section on one of your videos that there were FBAs saying we need to stop caring about when people say that's not all of us. We need to stop explaining ourselves when people say that's not all of us. And I said, okay, yeah, you're right. Blanket statements are going to always be thrown out. I do believe you make blanket statements about Pan-Africanists.
No, I speak to
So there will be.
I speak to what I've always consistently. So what I do patterns. So like for example,
I do patterns too.
Okay. How about this? How do you end up calling CIA members? Now what do they got to do?
How do I wait a second? Hold on. How do I end up calling what?
CIA informants or members, like FBI. You alluded. You basically said that.
Oh, because I do patterns. I look at patterns.
Oh, like me.
And patterns.
Right, like me.
Patterns. Are you yourself a pattern?
No, I know what I'm saying. I look at patterns like myself. That's what I meant. Like myself. You look at patterns.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you look at patterns, and I look at patterns. And we move with our we study, we observe patterns.
Yeah, but just for the sake of time,
we use our perspectives to identify patterns and say, boom, that's what it got to be. Now, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I will never convince you that I'm quote unquote right about my assessment.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
Okay.
I'm not religious. My name is actually Unbiased Ron. So I like to exercise and express and show and prove I'm unbiased. I had people come on here, brother, that I called a tether. And guess what? When we did research and we argued, he was right, I was wrong. I said on the live, hey, he's right, I'm wrong. On the live. I'm talking about we're debating. And I don't like this guy. I think he's disrespectful. But on the live, I admit, yeah, he was right, I was wrong. And I bring it up when he hopped on after that. I reminded folks, hey, he was right, I was wrong one time. So don't take what I say hook, line, and sinker. There's some things you just gotta follow up on.
Okay, cool.
So now you said, I'm almost done with the question. Now you said, I got two more. You said Yvette Carnell's divisive. Brother, what do you mean by that?
I mean, she's divisive. Like she says things, she says things in a polarizing way. She says things that are designed, what I say is it's designed for the algorithm. It's designed for the clicks. It's designed to get sound bites. It's like shock jock. Just like Star and Buck Wild used to do shock jock radio. It's like Howard Stern used to do shock jock. I can't give anything off the top of my head right now. I have discussed it in particular on various platforms. I did when I was doing a little bit more focus on Yvette Carnell. I was doing it mostly on Instagram, and then once I got my feel of okay, now I fully understand. I just like one of the other videos I did was agree to disagree and agree to disengage. Once I realized I am talking to nothing but a brick wall, and I'm like, well, yeah, I'm out. I'm done. Yeah. But I noticed patterns in the stuff that she said, and like I said, I can't pull it up right now.
Yeah.
It was one of the reasons why I asked you in the comment section on the video, if you tell me what the things are that we have a disagreement with, then I could prepare something.
Oh, you should.
But
you know what? You should have. Man, you should have. I thought about it later. So we're commenting on the damn video section. We should have been emailing because I would have emailed. I had it. I asked you most of the questions. I got like one left, but I could have easily emailed you these questions in advance, right? And I thought about that after. I said, why ain't just give him my email? He give me his. Because some guests, like for example, Dr. Maya, she emailed me. Like we didn't go in the comment section back and forth. She emailed me and she was able to get the talking points. And other folks who came on here, you had black conservatives, racist black conservatives, same thing, email. I gave them the talking points because I don't want to catch people off guard because I don't like being caught off guard. You know, if I could know in advance what I'm talking about, that makes people more comfortable with hopping on. Because you get to hold them to just that. No, you said this. Don't bring up something new and controversial to make me look crazy.
Right. Right. And that's why, like, even when I started, I was like, look, we said there was going to be a conversation.
Yeah.
You know.
So this is the last question. It's the last question for me, unless you have one for me or the chat had one for you. But have you researched? I'm sure you heard the name before, but have you ever researched Marcus Garvey?
Yeah.
So you would say he was a Pan-Africanist, right?
Would I say he's a Pan-Africanist? I would say, yeah, for the most part, he was a Pan-Africanist. I don't necessarily believe that he was infallible. I don't believe that he was always a Pan-Africanist.
Right. But when he came to America, he was like Pan-Africanist. Now, his views, see, a lot of people, especially non-Pan-Africans, a lot of people, when we think of Pan-Africanism, we usually regurgitate his views or think of his views. Okay, so he was all for we must return to Africa. Do you believe that? Or in your Pan-Africanist ideology, or you believe we can stay where we're at and still be Pan-Africans?
Okay, I believe that you can live wherever you want to on this planet and be a Pan-Africanist. I don't even necessarily believe, like, I was going to take issue with the way you framed the question. I don't believe that Marcus Garvey believes, or I don't believe that Marcus Garvey espoused the idea that we should all go back to Africa. He clearly made statements against that. He has never said everybody should go back to Africa.
Okay, so when I studied Marcus Garvey, he was liberating Black Americans from racism, right? When he wrote the letter to the Klan, his public letter to the Klan literally said, "You don't want us here, we don't want to be here." So he was discouraging fighting for civil rights, fighting for things he felt like wasn't going to happen. So he was saying the alternative is to just leave the country and go to Liberia, and where we can have self-determination, self-reliance, and do things for ourselves, where we can escape white supremacy, systemic racism. So that was his core message. That was the purpose for steamships. It was to do international trade well, but it was to leave the country and seek residence in Liberia.
But he also addressed the idea as to whether or not he thought, believed, felt, or was trying to encourage all Black Americans to go back to Africa. And he clearly said, no, I'm not saying all Black Americans should go back.
So
he literally said, now I'm saying literally, I don't have the 100% verbatim exact quote, but he said, I want 10,000 able-bodied, mind, soul, spirit Black Americans to go with me. I do not want everybody to come. Some of you ain't no good over here. You'd be no good over there.
Now that number, 10,000, you don't think that number, that to me, that's not a coincidental number. He chose, in my mind, because I know about the history of Liberia, like back and forth, top of my head, freestyle, that number, 10,000. I find that, I need that quote, because that's interesting that he said 10,000. Do you know how many free Blacks repatriated to Liberia during the 1800s?
No, I don't.
Proclamation. Yeah, it was about 10 to 12,000. Okay. So, do you know who were responsible for those folks going to Liberia? So what I'm saying is, did these free Blacks say, "Hey, let's go to Liberia," or did white supremacists say, "Hey, we don't want you here being free," inspiring other folks to be free and maybe inspiring rebellions? We want you out the country, and we're going to force migrate you to Liberia in the 10s to 12,000. Which one you think was true? Free Blacks wanted to go there freely, or white racists forced the migration?
I think it was both. From what I read, there were definitely some free Blacks that said, yeah, I want out of here. And from what I read, there was, the American Colonization Society that said, we want to help. Now, depending on what historian you read, some historians write it up like the American Colonization Society helped those Negroes go home. And other historians dug deeper and said, no, they lied, they falsified, they played a game, they were trying to run game, and they tricked people into agreements that were either fraudulently made or weren't even in existence.
So brother, the ACS was established in 1816 organization. And
wait a minute. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so they were established in 1816, and they established Liberia in 1822. So, brother, there was no free black person that was talking about, I want to go to Liberia. The Liberia was literally a colony of white supremacists, right? So that was, if anything, foundation Black Americans might have said, or free blacks might have said, I want to go somewhere else. But Liberia wasn't in their mind, because that was something that the ACS established themselves. So you got people like Martin Delaney Robinson, who did not go to, Martin Robinson Delaney did not go to Liberia, because he knew that was a setup. Like, he knew that was a white supremacist colony, and he is considered one of the first Pan-Africanists in America, and he went somewhere else. He went to Nigeria, somewhere else. Okay, Paul Cuff, who is considered the first Pan-Africanist that repatriated, and he was before the ACS, by the way. He built ships, and he brought 39 people with him. Brother, free blacks that went through ACS. It was not a lie. It was no mismanagement of words, semantics. They literally said, you're going to Liberia or you're going back on the plantation. So a lot of them got black. They are the ones, they are the reason why those blacks were free. Okay, the blacks were not free for themselves. They freed those blacks by their own money, and terms the condition they worked out was the slave holders. A lot of those blacks were considered troublesome on the plantation. So they literally told them, hey, you're going to Liberia or you're going back to the plantation, right? And that was 12,000 people they said responsible for. Black folks themselves going to Africa, brother, it was not Liberia. They went everywhere. When they had their own choice, they went everywhere but Liberia. So the ACS were responsible for 10 to 12,000 people to Liberia, and it was under coercion and forced migration. They had really no choice. But the ones who left voluntarily, like Martin Robinson Delaney, Paul Cuff, Alexander Cromwell, Richard Allen was a Pan-Africanist, but he never went. They all came back. They all seen, oh, wow, the grass isn't greener. It's actually worse in these African countries. And they all came back. They fought in the Civil War to gain their citizenship through the 14th Amendment, and they all died happy Americans.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to add to that, so when people say they're African American, that's hilarious, because our ancestors all the way to Booker T. Washington rejected the term African because they knew that was a dog whistle for deportation. You know, it means you're not an American. So our ancestors largely never took on the term African. They call themselves Negro. They call themselves colored, and even in our organizations, like the UNIA, the University of Negro, not the University of African. Marcus Garvey himself said Negro. All right, and most of our organizations had Negro color there, no African. Then we had Black, and Jesse Jackson made the term African American popular through liberal and Jewish media. So it wasn't like Tariq Nasheed and Adolph did the right way. Tariq Nasheed and Yvette did it the right way. They pitched the term to the grassroots and had us choose. And a nice portion of us saying that's right. Jesse Jackson didn't do that. Jesse Jackson said, hey, this is what they're going to be called. And it was nothing legal. It was not in writing, no constitution, nothing, no voters, no politics, there's nothing like that. They literally just put on applications going forward, and they had the media start to rename everything African American away from Black. But Africa was the term, African in Africa was something we stayed away from as a collective, because we knew that meant no citizenship and deportation. All we wanted was citizenship, because we wanted to avoid a situation like Dred Scott.
Okay. I don't necessarily agree with all of what you said, but I'm not sure why you're pinpointing it.
Okay. So I'm pinpointing that to say.
So for instance, you made the distinction, and this may be like just a surface level disagreement, but you made the distinction of saying that the civil rights or the past ancestors pushed for these words, you know, Negro, Black, or whatever, and they did not No, what is you said Jesse Jackson made it popular through Jewish and white media. And you said Tariq and Yvette did not use Jewish and white media. Now, this may just be, okay, this is a surface difference, but I mean, did they make their movements popular on Black-owned social media, or did they make their movements popular on white and Jewish-owned social media? If they got popular on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, or whatever else has been around.
Wait, hold on. Wait, brother. Hold on. Okay, so the whole conversation, we've been respectful. We've been quoting each other, literally. Okay, just now that you're misrepresenting me, I think on purpose. Okay, I didn't say a social. No, so I'm not saying when Malcolm X. Look, just hold on, because I'm gonna tell you when you're wrong. I did not say when Malcolm X had a bullhorn, right, or yelling from the soapbox. That was like that early days media. I'm not saying that. Listen, when we're on YouTube right now speaking, we're on StreamYard, we're on TikTok. They're just allowing it as free speech. They're not backing it. So when I said, so Trey she's not being backed by YouTube or social media platform about FBAs. I'm saying Jesse Jackson literally was backed by New York Times, LA Times, all these papers and media outlets. They were literally pushing for the term African American, and they said because it sounded softer and more acceptable than black. They felt like black power was too revolutionary. Black Panthers, Black Wall, they felt that was too aggressive. So they went with African American because it was softer and was more acceptable, more softer, safer, and acceptable to white America. So when I say media, I'm talking about literal media outlets were pushing it, and they put it on the application. And again, no laws were passed, no media, no Congress, no vote, nothing. They just deboed it on applications with the power of literal media, so we can actually give you the names of the media service. It's not made. This ain't no freedom of speech and you're on a public platform. No, they actually backed it. They put their money in advertising. It was on TV, bro. It was on TV. African American culture. It was on TV. You don't see FBA on Fox, or Fox or MSNBC, bro, or Super Bowl commercials. You don't see that. So, but you can finish. But I didn't want you to misrepresent when I said media pushing. I'm not talking about freedom of speech. Where I'm talking about YouTube literally is backing. TikTok is literally backing. I'm talking about that type of push from liberals and Jewish media. But you can finish. But I want to be represented correctly.
Like I said, what I said at the beginning before I tried to break it down was this may just be a surface or superficial disagreement. Because I was keying up on the words that you use, and I would still key up on the words that you use. I think there is a difference between, you say TikTok is not backing them. Now we all know everybody on these social media apps, everybody is monetizing their pages or working towards monetizing their page. Everybody's trying to get that check. Everybody's chasing the algorithm. So whether Instagram or YouTube or TikTok is purposely pushing, once your channel is monetized, that check is coming. And it's coming from whoever you are monetized on. If you monetized on TikTok, TikTok's cutting the check. If you monetize on YouTube, YouTube's cutting the check. That's what I was saying. So if he's using YouTube, if any of us are using a social media to put forth our ideas, that the notion that social media is not backing that is a thin line, that's a hairline distinction, because social media is going to cut you a check. And I don't see that any different than the Times, the New York Times saying, okay, we're going to put it out there. And it's not as though these so-called leaders haven't been on other news networks. Yvette Carnell has been on Fox. I believe Tariq Nasheed has been either on Fox or some network that is at least adjacent to Fox.
Yeah.
So they're still getting promoted by legacy media in one way, shape, form, or another.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. Got your answer. But luckily for me, I got a smart chat. And brother, I understand your take on it, but my chat is not going to take that one. I trust it not.
Yeah.
But
like
okay,
I said, like I'm not here to convince.
I didn't
No,
got
I'm
it.
not.
We're not here to debate either.
You
Right, because you said no debating. Okay, so here's the last question. You can ask me a question after this. Then we'll close out. Because again, we don't want to debate. You know, we just want to have a friendly conversation. And we could disagree to agree. Okay, so Marcus Garvey. How do you feel about him scamming Foundation Black Americans? How about that?
Why would I agree that? Why would I believe that? Why would I think that he scammed them? Can you show me the evidence?
Do you have a yes. So
can you show me the evidence?
Even back, yes. Relax. You can't ask a question. I go to answer. You keep talking over me. Okay, so you're debating when you said we shouldn't debate. So now, and during the 1950s,
I just asked the question,
and I'm answering. Did Marcus Garvey have a license to sell stocks? Was he registered to sell stocks? Yes or no? Historically.
Honestly, I don't know. I haven't gone that. I haven't looked at that angle of the history. That's why I said, can you show me the evidence? Okay. Asking me a question is not showing me the evidence.
Okay, just relax. You're being belligerent. We was cool all day. Now you're showing your
This is not belligerent, brother.
Okay, so
brother, this is not belligerent.
Question I go to answer. You're talking over me, asking the same question. So you don't know. Cool. That's honesty. Okay, so Marcus Garvey, even in his court appearance representing himself, matter of fact, he got fined $100 because he was not a registered stock license guy. Now, secondly, did Marcus Garvey advertise a ship did he solicit sales of a ship that he did not yet own? Yes or no?
Brother, if I tell you I don't know that part of the history, and I specifically asked you to show me, and I specifically asked you to show me that history, and you simply say, I'm just going to fire off more questions, that's belligerence.
Okay, cool. Well, what you're doing is called ignorance. Now I got to show you a picture. I got to show you videotape.
I openly admitted that I am ignorant to the line of questioning that you were pursuing.
So
you want me to answer? You want me to answer a?
Don't start. Okay, look, you're debating now. Because when I did that to you earlier, when I cut in to get more clarity or give you pushback, you said I was debating you. So then after that, I continue to show professionalism. I let you finish your thought completely before I respond. After the first warning you gave me about debating, and you said we're not here to debate, I consistently show professionalism. You have since that time you have not. You've been cutting in, even you've been doing that lately. Okay, so now you said show you. You keep saying show you like I have a videotape for you. Okay, so we both are reading history, both of us. Everything we said today is something we read. How much show you? Okay, now, Marcus Garvey in his court transcript admitted that he solicited stocks through mail. He admitted that he was selling his shit, that those same solicitations for stocks through mail, that was mail fraud. He admitted that he did not own that shit. He had no records when they did a audit. He admitted, and there was no record showing he owed the shit, brother. This is okay. Stop. This is not a debate, brother Reggie. You don't know this, but brother Reggie is over here. Brother Reggie, this is common knowledge. That's why I asked you. Did you study Marcus Garvey? This is common knowledge, okay, that he sold stocks to a ship that he did not own. I think it was the Filey's Wheaton. That's common sense, bro. That's common read on Marcus Garvey. Dr. M. John Clark admits that. Okay, Dr. Mayat, when she come on here, she's going to admit that. This is when you read history and stop trying to revise history, which you've been doing all day. I've been letting that slide because I don't want to debate. Okay, you've been revising history now. That he's publicly speaking on platforms. They're trying to shit on him, Fox 5, and they're trying to prove him wrong, like they did Dr. Khalid Muhammad. So was Dr. Khalid Muhammad promoting Islam when he was on Fox 5 and talking to Sean Handy or Phil Donahue? Like, you sound crazy, bro. Like, but you sound like a normal Pan-Africanist. Okay, then you're being aggressive. I tell people, once you're calm on my platform, I match your energy. But when you start to get a little excited, I'm gonna get excited too. All right, and I'm getting excited. All right, so I match energy here. So Marcus, it's not debatable, family. And then when I brought up, when he flat out lied to all of y'all and act like white people were successful with their slave raids in Africa, he's a complete bullshit fucking liar. I was disgusted he got books and scholars. Dude, give us one. Well, see, credible to you and credible to me. What are you talking about? I'm saying any simple search, white folks were unsuccessful with snatching up Africans from Africa, anywhere, the coast, midland, inland, unsuccessful. It had so these Pan-Africanists are full of shit and they're liars, and he's no different. And he's called the proper perspective. He's the proper liar. They were unsuccessful. It took the slave trade would have never happened without African slave race. White people needed Africans to go grab black folks to sell to them. He's acting like it was 50-50 or a significant number. Anywhere you read, family, just do any search from anywhere. Britannica, Wikipedia, ChatGPT, Google, any search. They're gonna read. We have revenue on here. That's a frequent troll and frequent sheet. Even he was forced to. He was doing what proper perspective was doing. He's arguing, perspective was doing, arguing. Then when he pulled up his source to try to read slave race from white Europeans, he read what I read, and he read his own source. He read that they were unsuccessful. They didn't go far. Majority, almost all of the Africans that was kidnapped, they used the term kidnap, were from other Africans. That's a fact. We don't go with Pan-Africanist lies over here, bro. I appreciate you calling in, dialoguing, but the lies, the deceit, the low key, shots are unappreciated. And I thank you for calling in. You're a man of your word, but you are not a man of integrity. Okay, at all. So, that's that. And what you need to do is What you need to do is look at history from an unbiased perspective, not from a Pan-Africanist perspective. I told you, chat, that Pan-Africanists it's a religion, and they're religious. And in their religion, you cannot hold Africa accountable for nothing. They are trying to do the unthinkable. You know how bad they'll get cooked by Charlie Kirk, Jared Taylor? Like, they're setting themselves up for the worst type of embarrassment. You're gonna lie to white supremacists about white people going into Africa, snatching up black folks, and Africans were like played a minimal role in that. Like, you're going to die when you talk figuratively. They're going to cook the shit out of you. These white racists. Ben Shapiro, these guys, they're going to, allegedly, suspected white racists, right? Suspected. Allegedly. They're going to cook the shit out of you. One thing we're not going to do is lie. Okay? We always say, the liars, they don't go far in this debate realm. Like, he didn't go far. White people was kidnapped. Like, they hate white folks so much. Who's the common enemy? Oh, the government. Yeah, but isn't the government ran by people? Yeah. Is it race-based? Yeah, it was race-based. But see, I told you, Pan-Africanists are like leftists when it comes to conservatives and leftists. Like, leftists will politically say the right things, even though they disagree with what they just said. Right-wing folks or conservatives will just say it outright, no matter how bad it makes them seem. Okay, when it comes to Pan-Africanism or Blackology itself, the conscious community, the Nation of Islam and those groups, they're going to be loud and proud, right, with their hate and rhetoric. But Pan-Africanists, they're going to be leftists. They're going to be politically correct. They're going to say things in a way, oh yeah, the enemy. Who's the enemy? They want to say the white man, but the government. Yeah, but the government ran by people. So is it everybody who's in government, black, white, Hispanic, Chinese, or is it race-based? Oh, race-based. Okay, well, who's the majority of people in government? See, and then they'll filibuster and deflect from that. It's like, dude, you want to say white people like Black Panthers, like the Moors, and just like this Islam, but you won't. You wouldn't be politically correct. Can't respect that. Can't respect that. Yeah. So he came on. He didn't do good. Obviously, he didn't have a proper perspective on nothing. He could not recall any talking points from Yvette Carnell being divisive. He could not recall any examples of us being cult members. He couldn't show any examples of these patterns that he recognized, right? So this proper perspective was invisible today on this platform, and which I knew it would be with the right questions, right? So Family, I appreciate y'all. Let me do this. The super chat does work. Peace, Passport King, April Jews, Proper Perspective. Nah, bro, I don't hate you. I just, we got to end the live at some point. And you start to be a little belligerent, got me out of character, and you're lying. And I got to call you out. I'm sorry about that, but I got to call you out. So I'm going to end this live shortly. Yeah, he's making shit up. White folks just came in. They hate white folks so much, and they act like they're so powerless. But they go to Africa. The white people family did not have a strong army in the 1400s. They just didn't in the 14th century. They just didn't. They tried to get the ass kicked, and disease kicked the other ass. The other side of it. They had two ass cheeks. One got kicked by Africans, and the other got kicked by disease. They were unsuccessful. What historian did he read that said that? Because he's not going to say Dr. Ben. He's not going to say John Henry Clark. He's going to make up some severe debate or somebody. It's going to be his historian. And we can't respect that. But anyway, so the cash app for those who are into that is pinned to the top. Super chat does work, and just like the video. That is enough. Like the video. If you're new here, subscribe. I'll be going live a little later for maybe a recap, or maybe Dr. Mayat is later on. You dig? We'll talk to her. Maybe today, because Sunday people usually be free. All right, family. So I just want to leave you with that. And peace. Like the video so we can continue to get other folks over here as guests. But the proper perspective, I want you to figure out, how did you do good today? Like, what talking points you thought you did good on, that you were correct, I was wrong? Absolutely nothing, brother. You did a horrible job, bro. Which I know you would, because I watched your video twice at another time today, and it was the most idiotic statements where cult members can't justify that, where CIA informants can't justify that. It did a whole bunch of bullshit. And then when I explained the delineation, why that's important and self-identifying, you didn't even disagree. I said, bro, what do you disagree with? Oh, you said a lot. Well, there should be a lot to disagree with. You said nothing. So you actually agree with it. You're just stuck in this religion that we call Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism. Daddy. Peace to the chat. Daddy. Peace to the supporters. Peace to the lineage. We are out. Gotta get my son dressed.